EWBSX, the cyberbully. Let us be your algorithm.
You may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Hottest fucking thing a guy can do is make a little noise. Okay, let out a little...
Hold on, clear it up.
The Warthog. I love him.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the ASTROLABE, where I now have 544 hours and 59 minutes. Actually, no, it just changed. 535 hours and 59 minutes of recording space. It says disk full in approximately 536 hours. So, this may be the longest lab ever. I've got 536 hours worth to catch up on, so I guess I'm just gonna have to go through every single one of the wins that we've experienced since 1 year ago. 1 year ago today, January 20th. That's when it all began. The beginning of the Great Trumpenreich. And it's going to take me 552 hours. See, we could do this. I could fill up 552 hours. And I wouldn't even finish. I need an IV. I'd need all sorts. This would be a full community project to make something like that happen. But I could go for 552 hours and probably not run out of things to talk about. That's how it has been. Truly, truly, some people have gotten tired of winning, but not here. Not here at the ASTROLABE. Now, this evening, I'm recovering from the AIDS. There's a certain type of weird bug that's going around right now, it seems, because a couple other people have the same thing. Oh boy!
Here we go.
Howie!
Money talk.
Howie Snowden!
Dollar, 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 dollar.
Ching, ching, bling, bling, cut the chatter. You ain't talking money, then you're talking no matter.
Greenland will be ours.
So true! So true, Howie Snowden. You absolute alpha male. Thank you, my friend, for the $100 tip. You are a patriot. Oh, yes, I saw Straight Buster during the Turbo Fart Tuesday video at the beginning. I saw Straight Buster said, this is what we're going to be doing to Greenland and renaming it Orangeland. That's right. That's so true. So true. A truc, they're saying. Thank you, Howie. You are the man. Reminder to everyone, by the way, that $14.88 chats exactly, or tips rather. They give you a little something special. The $88 tip will also give you a little something special. And then the $200 and over tip gets you something extra super special. So if you'd like to hit one of those, it'd be very much appreciated. I did have to miss yesterday. I missed a work day. I had to call in sick because of the AIDS. I had a sore throat. That was the biggest thing. It hasn't hit my sinuses all that much, just kind of a bit, but sore throat felt like a whole bunch of gnomes had been hammering away on my arms and legs all night. I woke up with a headache and my skin is crawling, and I've been an unhappy character. And so today I'm kind of in that stage where I'm starting to feel a little bit better, but I've got that restless energy and I have like the remnants of Dayquil. Oh boy! Howie! Oh, that's such a banger. Thank you, Howie. I wish I could like pin these down here, because that's one he didn't say anything with it. So like if one didn't go through, then I would have a default one that I can save. I guess you guys will just have to keep sending as many of them to me as you possibly can, so I can have them. I can always have one near the top. Thank you, Howie, you patriot. So anywho, so I will be doing a stream tomorrow. I normally don't do Wednesdays. I had to skip Monday. So tomorrow, I'll do another lab. And I've already got a bunch of it because I had to push off a whole bunch that I thought about maybe trying to cram it into today's. Today is going to be a long one. Today is going to be chock full. I'm going to give you guys your money's worth on this one. So we got started late. It's likely going to be even later, but you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little foggy brained or just extra agitated because I am in a pissy mood tonight. My wife says she doesn't have a membership, so if someone wants to gift a sub, that would be fantastic. See if you can target one at my wife. Gift my wife a sub. There you go. Thank you to all the people who have subscribed or resubscribed. Niles Pritchard, Columrosh, Barnden, Aspiring Midwit, Jordan Gibb, Nematoder, Barnden, you're on here multiple times. Do you have multiple memberships? That shouldn't be possible. Oh no, it was a membership message. I see. 8 months of labing. Patriot. It's crazy that I've been on Kick for 8 months. I've been Kick longer than 8 months now. Austin, thank you, all of you guys. Appreciate you resubscribing. Over on Kick, keeping the bills paid. I do have to get a quick little wife jack section here. A message from Mrs. Kingpild. She wanted everybody to know we have had some exciting news. An exciting addition to our menagerie. Eastwood has announced the birth of Dot Dirk. I know, I was bad, I know. Dot Dirk has joined the family. Another pig child. He's Dot Dirk. He's a boy, And let me see. I asked Amy to give me the make sure I had all the lore for it. So he's the latest Dirk, born last week. So this means we now have Pig Dirk and Pig She, with Rock Dirk, Fridge Dirk, and I can't remember the other one. Rock Dirk, Fridge Dirk, and the other one's escaping my mind. But then it's Pig Dirk and Pig She, and now Dot Dirk has joined the clan. There's four kids, I believe, 4 kids in the Dirk family. Also, he has had an imaginary horse for a while named Rumbles, and we showed him the video. We showed him the video of Paul Suda doing the jousting from the Pseudolabe. If you guys did not catch the Pseudolabe on Saturday, make sure you go back and watch that one. It was A Knight's Tale interspersed with clips of Paul Suda jousting on, what was it called? Full Metal Jousting, reality TV show about 15 years ago. So good. So good. So we showed the jousting parts. Eastwood's still, A Knight's Tale is still a little bit beyond him, but we showed him the jousting parts, and he has now been riding Rumbles around, pretending that he is jousting. So that is Rumbles, the imaginary horse, as he plays with the Dirk family, his imaginary pigs. He's got a whole bunch of other imaginaries as well. He has a dragon. He has a man. I used to be able to run all through them. I don't have them immediately in the mind now. What was it? There was a dragon. There's like a hamster, I think. He's got a whole bunch. He's got a whole bunch of imaginary friends that he takes around with. Austin!
Dirk Dirk, Mama Dirk, Charlie Dirk, and Erica Dirk.
Erica Dirk. So true, Austin. Thank you, man. Yes, this is Eastwood's imaginary pig family. He has like a family of pigs that live with him, and he goes on adventures with them. Pig Dirk is one of his primary partners in crime. After a while, we learned that that Pig Dirk had a family, and then he kept having children. And so he has all of his imaginaries that just periodically updates us on their status, what they're up to, and in this case, we learned that Dot Dirk had been born, and so it was very exciting news for the family. Okay, let us get started. First of all, this is one of the biggest viral clips like this that we've seen in quite a while. A whole bunch of people, like 25 people, sent this one to me, and Elon Musk tweeted about it. So I figured it was probably worth talking about. YouTuber Jesse James West held a competition to see who's stronger between tall, strong bodybuilder women and strong dwarf men. Result: the dwarf men easily crushed them. The women were very egoistic. I think that's probably supposed to be egotistic. I don't think he's describing egoism to them necessarily. Very egotistic, serious, and competitive, while the men were just having fun. Why is gender equality forced when the difference in ability is pretty clear? This is very entertaining. You guys are going to enjoy this one if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, you're still going to enjoy it.
These are female giants. And they are the world's strongest dwarves. And they'll be competing in strength competitions, all to find out who is stronger.
You're going down.
Yeah. No, you're going down. Go. Easy. Drive. 585 pounds on the bar.
Yep. Come on.
Am I clear?
Yep.
Good job, Zoe. Good job, Zoe. Good job. One more.
Now I will say, this is impressive as hell. These guys are lifting impressive multiples of their own body weight. However, with this sort of lift in particular, the dwarves actually have a huge advantage. And I'm short lever arms. That's right. This is like in the NFL Combine when they have the guys do all the different strength and agility tests. They have them do the bench press, and it's 225 pounds, and they have to lift it as many times as they can. And the guys that always do the best are the defensive tackles or interior offensive linemen who are very squat. They're very stout, and they've typically got shorter arms. So if you're an offensive lineman and you've got short arms, you're likely going to be an interior offensive lineman, even if you're tall. It can actually be a disadvantage. If you're 6'5", and you've got short arms, then it's kind of going to be harder for you to maintain your leverage against the defensive lineman. And leverage is what matters in the trenches. So the guys that are always putting up the biggest numbers are the guys who are like 6 foot to 6'3", maybe 6 foot to 6'2", 5'11" to 6'2", who weigh like 295 to 340. Those are the guys that will crank out like 35 or 40 reps of 225. They're just, but then you'll get the really freak athletes, the really big, long, tall guys who have long arms. So like a cornerback or a wide receiver, a lot of those guys can, because they've got so much further they have to travel, it's really difficult for their the really long-armed guys to lift those super heavy weights. So in the event that you get a guy who is like 6'6" or 6'8" and 6'6" or 6'8" and can bench like 15 times, 225 like 15 times, those are the freaks. Those are the generational athletes. But anyways, long aside, the dwarves here actually have a significant natural advantage over the women. Like short dwarf, how would I say this? Dwarf weightlifter women would perform this better than these women would.
2. Come on, big dog. 1, go. Come on.
Same with this one. This is all about leverage.
No way. No way. Come on, Doug. Come on.
Having to pick up these little balls, like bend over and pick up these little balls of muscle and throw them around, it would be difficult for any person who's taller than them. So like, there's a real natural advantage. Like the way a bigger guy would deal with them, if he couldn't just like kick them away, he'd probably have to get down on the ground, like get down on his knees to do with them. So these are, I love that the exercises they chose are ones that actually accentuate the guy's advantage over the women.
Crazy, all right. Yes. All right, next one.
You got this. Big one. You got this. Come on, girl.
Yo, Lorenzo's already at 4 plates right now. I think Brittany's stuck at 3.
Easy, good. Pull. No. Nope. Hey, let's go. Move over.
Yep.
Lorenzo's got it on his own.
Nice.
Emily decided to help Britt with her 315 deadlift.
Emily and Brittany are going. I did not tell them they couldn't do this. We're going.
That's just a surrender. Now here's where the advantage would be the other way, for sure.
Go!
These dudes are warriors.
Winners!
Guys, like, even if she's tiny, I mean, she might weigh, I don't know, 150 pounds or something. It's hard to tell exactly how tall she is. She might be like 150 or 160 pounds. But even these little guys picking her up, these guys might weigh half that. So they're carrying like double their body weight. I wonder how much these little fuckers weigh. Are they like, how dense are they? Are they like these really compact little bastards that, you know, they might weigh 120 pounds or something? Or are they like 70 or 80 pounds? I need to go find some midgets and try picking them up. Here you go, boys. This is one for you to take to your wives. Men's sweat. soothes a woman's soul. In this study, armpit sweat from men was applied to women's lips. It decreased tension, decreased stress, and boosted their mood significantly. It also increased LH, a signal to ovulate. The best part is that every woman guessed the researchers applied cologne or alcohol to their lips. Colognes are beta. Let your natural scent shine. Male axillary extracts. Male armpit sweat contain pheromones that affect pulsatile secretion of luteinizing hormone and mood in women recipients. Human underarm secretions, when applied to women recipients, alter the length and timing of the menstrual cycle. These effects are thought to arise from exposure to primer pheromones that are produced in the underarm. Pheromones can affect endocrine, primer, or behavioral, releaser responses, provide information, signaler, or perhaps even modify emotion or mood, modulator. In this study, we extracted underarm secretions from pads worn by men and placed the extract under the nose of women volunteers while monitoring serum LH, luteinizing hormone, and emotion and mood. Pulses of luteinizing hormone are excellent indicators of the release of GnRH from the brain's hypothalamus. In women, the positive influence of GnRH on luteinizing hormone affects the length and timing of the menstrual cycle, which in turn affects fertility. Here we show that extracts of male axillary secretions have a direct effect upon luteinizing hormone pulsing and mood of women. In our subjects, the putative male pheromones advance the onset of the next peak of luteinizing hormone after its application, reduce tension, and increased relaxation. These results demonstrate that male axillary secretions contain one or more constituents that act as primer and modulator pheromones. There you go, boys. Never have to wear deodorant again. How much tax funding went into this? Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe I support tax funding going into this. But there's also there's some interesting levels to this. Yeah, show up to the bar sweaty. I mean, unironically, it'd be very interesting to do something like that, where it's like it's affecting her subconsciously, but maybe like her conscious mind rejects it, but subconsciously she does it. She accepts it or something like that. It'd be interesting to test that further. But what this made me think of is, like, I'm sure that if you dug into this a little bit deeper, you would find that some armpit sweat is better than others. Let's just say that. And you could start ranking men by their armpit sweat. And I'll bet you if you figured out a way to rank men by their armpit sweat, men would figure out very quickly what sorts of substances are contributing to negative armpit sweat. And some of them would care and some of them wouldn't. It has to be organic armpit sweat. That's right. So it can't have seed oils. It can't have microplastics. It can't have, it needs to be mineral balanced. You can start optimizing your Babe Dirk. That was the other one. Yes, Babe Dirk. Yeah, I thought it was a girl. Babe Dirk, Fridge Dirk, and Rock Dirk. I wonder what sort of armpit sweat they have. Anyways, so it would be interesting if this became a thing and it turned into a roundabout way to get people to pay attention to what they're eating and what sort of like fabrics they're wearing and that sort of thing. Like I try as much as I can to get cotton now, like cotton t-shirts and stuff, but it's difficult to do that fully. It's expensive to do that fully. And then there's inconveniences with cotton clothes as well. Like they get wrinkled way easier. And you have to worry about them shrinking and all that sort of thing. So, but I know the deodorant. It's very difficult to find a deodorant that doesn't fuck with your hormones or cause chafing or it's like uncomfortable. Spudrucker says, pretty sure different hormones are secreted from physical exertion sweat than stationary stress sweat or not from exertion. That's a good point. That would be another thing as well. Like, is this like back sweat because you've been sitting in the air-conditioned office underneath LED lights all day, or fluorescent lights all day? Or is this like sweat because you were out in the field rolling around in the dirt and stuff? I know that I remember being a kid and smelling that pleasantly, what would you say it? It's like pleasantly musky smell on my dad. Like, I have memories of my dad picking me up and carrying me after we'd like played baseball or basketball or something, and he was all sweaty. And I remember it being kind of like, ugh, gross, he's sweaty, but he smelled good. He just smelled like a man that had been sweating, and it was just a pleasant smell. But there's a difference between that and just straight up body odor. The smell of sweat and the smell of body odor are not the same and don't have to be the same thing. This was just kind of a random one that I had in here, and I didn't have anywhere to fit it, but I wanted to play it because it's kind of funny and it's kind of charming. Yeah. So this is Nick gets a super chat from Hopeful Boomer.
Lonely old guy here. Scott Adams kept me company in the morning. You keep me company in the evenings. God rest his soul, and may God bless you. I'm proud of you.
You're to break my heart. Lonely old guy. Well, hey, I hope you're a little bit less lonely on the show. Hopeful Boomer sent $40. Hey, lonely old guy, I'm proud of you. You're going to kill me. That's so... Come on, buddy. Bring it in. Hopeful Boomer sent $40. Dude, this is just like absolute... That's a tearjerker. Hopeful Boomer sent $40.
I don't know how many boomers are listening to Nick, but obviously not zero. And the particular type of boomer that would wind up listening to Nick, like, you could probably nail in that like sociological profile pretty tight. If you're a boomer who winds up listening regularly to Nick Fuentes, and particularly if you like listen to Nick Fuentes and Scott Adams both. Like, those are this is someone who's very high in openness. But he's probably very shy. He like just keeps to himself. So he's just like this lonely old boomer. And he's like, oh, I just lost, like, this guy who's really important in my life just died. And so now I'm just going to have to lean even more into Nick Fuentes stuff. Like, there is some very weird sociological emergences that we're going to go through over the next several years.
Doesn't even sound real. Hey, well, we love you, buddy. I hope you're a little bit less lonely on the show. Hope you're participating in the community. Hope you're hanging out on Twitter and everything. It's tough. It's a lonely world. You know, I get lonely all the time. So I hope you're not alone. The one thing that lonely people have in common, we all get lonely, you know? So maybe that makes you feel a little bit less lonely, you know?
The party meme, but it's a boomer saying, I bet they don't know I like Fuentes. Yes, Ryan Isaac, yes, exactly like that. There's someone I know who, some of you know who I'm talking about, but I'm just gonna, there's someone that I know who goes to church with a guy who is, he's like an 80-year-old groiper. Like an 80-year-old incel groiper. Really, really cool guy. Very, very autistic, but like really cool, really nice, pleasant old fella. He's like 80. And he loves Nick Fuentes. He's a groiper. Yeah. So like, there's some really odd types that exist out there.
We're all out there living our lives of quiet desperation. We're all out there longing. So there's something universal there. But we love you, buddy. Yeah, rest in peace, Scott Adams. He wasn't really a big fan of mine, but it was really hard to watch him go that way. Such a horrible disease. So it's a shame, but God bless you, buddy. I hope the show is some comfort for you. Good to hear from you, man.
Conker sent $20.
Okay. Now let's just totally chud post here for a minute. This first one, it's called We Do a Little Limp Bizkit Nationalism. This basically fit my mood today. That's why I put these in here.
Do you think we can fly? Well, I do. DJ Lethal, bring it on! Yeah!
We're chudding here, boys. The world seems to forget who the boss is. We use war as a training ground for future wars. We are the United States of America, leader of the free world. This will be topical for later in our discussion tonight. But for now, we chud. Fuck you, Euromobile. Made in America only. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me. 'Cause I may be bad, but I'm perfectly good, and it's sexy in the air. Thank you all of the smell of it. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me. Na na na, come on, come on, come on. I like you, like it, come on, come on, come on. I like you, like it, come on, come on, come on. I like you, like it, come on, come on, come on. I like you, like it. What a frickin' banger! Yeah, that does my chud soul good. Where's my spagiggers at? Did you know? I've got this whole. Did I put it here? Yes. Okay. Actually, let me do this in this order. So first of all, I've had this little thesis that I've been working on for a while that I think I've mentioned it on the show. I know I've talked about it in the Kingpilled Discord voice chat. Kingpilled.com. You should go join. This thesis that America is describing America as an Anglo nation is only telling part of the story. I think America is far more Latin than the America as an Anglo nation narrative wants to grapple with. I think that there's a distinct Latin influence for a bunch of reasons, but as soon as the first time that I heard someone say that, I think it was Naval Ravikant said that America is simply the most functional Latin American nation, I was like, damn, that's really true. Like, we're like white Latin Americans. And I think that's part of why the reputation of America as being sort of like the thuggish gangsters that live really flashy lives and just flaunt themselves all over the rest of the world, just kind of don't care about anyone else. We're Americans, we're the fucking coolest nation on earth, and we're just going to do whatever we want. That's not Anglo. That is not Anglo in the slightest. And the Anglos have their own way of doing it, but it's very different. So there's a much more romantic characteristic, I think, to romantic in like not literal romantic, big R romantic. There's a lot more romance to America, I think. So here's an example to prove my point.
The Roman soldiers had an average step of 5.28 feet. So it was 5.28 feet, and so every 1,000 steps, they would put a 1,000-step marker alongside of their road. Well, 5.28 step by 1,000 is 5,280 feet, which is the length of a mile. And the Italian Latin word for 1,000 is mille, M-I-L-E, mile. So the length of our mile today is the length that a Roman soldier would take 1,000 steps. And so we still have this remnant of the Roman Empire on the speedometers of all of our cars, at least in America. The Roman soldier...
Yet another proof. This is one of these things that's been looking at me, staring me in the face my entire life. I've known that since I was like 8 or 10. Like, I like to read things, and I love learning trivia, and I loved studying history and stuff. I used to read the encyclopedia for fun. I used to get in trouble because I'd go into the bathroom and I would take the dictionary with me, and I would get in trouble for being in the bathroom reading books, and I'd be in there for too long. My mom would yell at me, and so I would hide books inside the bathroom so that I would have books in there that I could go in and read, because if my mom saw me walk into the bathroom with a book, she'd be like, nope. You're not going to spend an hour and a half in the bathroom because you're reading a book. It's bad for you. You're taking up the bathroom, So I used to just sit and read the dictionary sometimes. I took a dictionary to high school with me and carried it around in my backpack because I wanted to have it with me. I was a weird kid. So I'd known this for a long time, but it never clicked to me that this sort of measuring system is something that America has inherited and retained that is much older. It's a much more ancient system of measuring that is attached to specific actions of the body. It's much more grounded. It's not an abstraction. It is an abstraction, but it's not a complete abstraction. A foot, a yard, the cubit, all of these different measurement. What's the word I'm looking for here? These measurement, this measurement convention. Tom!
What the fuck is a mile?
I jumped the gun and I covered up Christine. Christine said, "What the fuck is a mile?" Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so America has retained this system that it's even called the imperial system. We've retained this much older system that is directly tied to the human person or actions of the human body. So this is just more. And the founders themselves, when they came over, they saw themselves as inheritors of the Roman tradition. Essentially, they were like, we have the Roman tradition, and then we have the British common law system, and we're going to try to meld these together. And that's basically what created the American system. So, and then there's the fact that the Spanish settled over here. There was some substantial French influence over here. That is French being sort of a kind of a mix of the two. Just speaking in broad terms here. And then there's the selection effect of the people who came to America in the first place. There was a particular psychological type or a particular social class that would be pushed to go to America in the first place. And then not just go to America, but then extend out across America. These are all things that have substantially changed the composition and psychological posture of the American ethnos. So we are descended from Europe, from Europeans, but we have emerged as our own ethnos, and that ethnos is not strictly Anglo. And I say this as someone who is largely Anglo. That there is there's a lot more to America than strictly being a nation of Anglo customs and rituals and sentiments and just in general. It's a heavily anglicized nation, I would say that. We have the British common law system, and many of our elite institutions were built by and for the sake of the much more anglicized American cultures. But they were built almost intentionally to exclude the non-Anglo factions or the not sufficiently Anglo factions present at various times and in various places in America. Austin says, some reason mentioning that this country was founded by Spaniards, French, Dutch, and English wild boys got my comment deleted. We aren't Latin, we're just wild boys from all over Europe. Well, yeah, we are wild boys from all over Europe, but there's a lot of, I think there's just as much Latin influence to us as there is Anglo. And because then there's also the big like, you have the traditions that have like gravitational pulls themselves. And so there may be groups that don't necessarily fall directly into one of those traditions, but they're heavily influenced by one or the other. But anyways, okay, so that being said, it turns out once I had to start to click in my head, suddenly I realized that Italian is a lot easier to understand.
Wow, il presidente Trump tiene mucho grande voz, e Trump voz molto grande, mucho grande, y el European Union leaders are weak little shitty, capisce? Like il presidente di France, Emmanuel Macron, his wife slapped him like a bitchy. She slapped him like a bitchy all the time, and now he need to wear el sunglasses to cover el red eye. So anyway, if el presidente Trump want to take il Greenland, he should. He can just roll up on El Greenland with his mucho grande balls and just say, I'm the president now, bitches. And I guarantee you European leaders will shit their pantsy. Wow.
Georgie, can you confirm? Do we have any other spagiggers here in the chat? Can you confirm that this is, that we're understanding this correctly? Because it came through real clear to me. It's easier to understand if you imagine she has a mustache. Georgie says 100% accurate. We'll talk about the Greenland thing here in just a little bit, but I got a few other things before that. First of all, this is just a cool little thing. I'd imagine that most of you guys aren't planning to become an hourly employee at Steak and Shake, but if you are, if that is, no hate if you are. I know the ages that I'm typically talking to, and I'm guessing most of them aren't looking at being an hourly employee at Steak and Shake. But if you were, then they're giving all of their hourly employees, starting March 1, Steak and Shake will give all hourly employees at its company-operated restaurants a Bitcoin bonus of 21 cents for every hour worked. Employees will be able to collect their Bitcoin pay after a 2-year vesting period. Thank you to Fold App for the assist. We take care of our employees. They, in turn, take care of customers, and the results take care of themselves. This is some freaking brilliant business right here. These are the sorts of things that fully convince me that Steak and Shake is not just in the Bitcoin thing as a, what do you call it, as just a gimmick. Like, they actually genuinely are taking a position on Bitcoin. They're not just being like, oh, hey, nobody else is talking about Bitcoin, so we'll be the Bitcoin restaurant. Like, they're doing that for sure, but they also genuinely believe in Bitcoin because they're recognizing that Bitcoin is going to appreciate after that time. So it's going to be valuable to those employees. It's going to inspire them to stick around longer. They get greater employee retention, and they don't actually have to pay it out to them for 2 years. They just get to hold it for 2 years. So they're essentially creating a Bitcoin treasury that begins to be payable on an ongoing basis going forward. And they're monetizing the work of their employee. This is the sort of shit that once you realize, like once Bitcoin kind of really clatters its way down through all the stalactites and stalagmites in your brain, finally gets to the bottom, then you realize these are the sorts of innovative things that can be done where Bitcoin can be just kind of cleverly bolted onto an existing thing that you're doing. And it's going to make the company and the people affiliated with the company much better off. There's like a big win-win-win thing that happens here. So this is pretty cool to see. Okay. 365 days of President Donald J. Trump. A golden age, just getting started. This is what my president wanted us to see on the 365th day, the 1-year anniversary of the beginning of the Trumpenreich. So you must peel your eyeballs open and take it in all of its glory.
All for and did it my
Yes, this was posted by the White House account. 365 days of President Donald J. Trump, a golden age just getting started. And you notice that they made this not just for X, they made this for mass consumption. They made this for the shorts, for Instagram, for TikTok, for the reels. That's what they made this one for. John Doyle, absolute peak patriot John Doyle, said, had this been posted in 2029, I'd be correctly, if disappointedly, saying that this has been an overall success and patriot victory. In other words, the success that this administration has had in just its first year has been far beyond even my most optimistic expectations. Fully agree. Wholeheartedly agree. If it had taken until 2029, January 20 of 2029, for us to attain some of the things that we've attained, that would have been tremendous progress compared to where we were. Instead, we're getting this in 2026. Simply extraordinary. And today, President Trump executive order on homes has just been released. 2026 is already, that was 2025. 2026 has already been completely off the hook. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Buying and owning a home has long been considered the pinnacle of the American dream and a way for families to invest and build lifetime wealth. But because of the recent high inflation and interest rates caused by the previous administration, that American dream has been increasingly out of reach for too many of our citizens, especially first-time home buyers. That paragraph is permanently in the record as part of an executive order from the President of the United States, directly identifying a problem that not that many months ago was only talked about by little niche corners of the internet. At the same time, a growing share of single-family homes, often concentrated in certain communities, have been purchased by large Wall Street investors, crowding out families seeking to buy homes. Hardworking young families cannot effectively compete for starter homes with Wall Street firms and their vast resources. Neighborhoods and communities once controlled by middle-class American families are now run by faraway corporate interests. People live in homes, not corporations. People live in homes, not corporations. My administration will take decisive action to stop Wall Street from treating America's neighborhoods like a trading floor and empower American families to own their homes. To preserve the supply of single-family homes for American families and increase the path to homeownership, it is the policy of my administration that large institutional investors should not buy single-family homes that could otherwise be purchased by families. Now, if you've been listening to the Labe for a while, you would have been waiting for this. You would have been expecting this. Been telling anybody who will listen for months that something like this is coming down the pike. They're going to be addressing the housing problem in a creative way like this. They're going to be targeting the exact sort of things we've been talking about that are causing the problems in the housing market, but they're going to have to be creative and judicious about how they do it. Because you can't just say that it is illegal to own a house with an LLC. That is a full non-starter. You want to bankrupt a whole bunch of potential our guys? That's going to be saying you can't own through an LLC that's going to take away a significant path for building wealth available to our guys. We're not going to have any we're not abolishing renting. We're not going to make renting go away. All landlords have to die because we're not commies. There still is going to be a rental market. There are still going to be landlords. And what we would prefer is that our guys be the landlords. So you can't just ban having LLCs purchase single-family homes. And as soon as you start playing the shell game, things get really complicated. So to enforce something like this, to actually encode it into the law and have it only target so-called institutional investors is going to be difficult. So he says, first of all, within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of the Treasury shall develop, in consultation with the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, definitions of large institutional investor and single-family home for the purpose of implementing this order, which other executive departments and agencies may adopt as required for such implementation. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Administrator of General Services, and Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, as appropriate, shall issue guidance to. So you've got Agriculture, HUD, VA, General Services, GSA, and FHFA together are going to issue guidance for a number of things. First of all, preventing agencies and government-sponsored enterprises from engaging in the following to the maximum extent permitted by law. Providing for, approving, ensuring, guaranteeing, securitizing, or facilitating the acquisition by a large institutional investor of a single-family home that could otherwise be purchased by an individual owner-occupant. Or, so they may not do that. Any agency or government-sponsored enterprise may not provide for, approve, insure, guarantee, securitize, or facilitate the acquisition by a large institutional investor of a single-family home that could otherwise be purchased by an individual owner-occupant. See, this is you could see all the different flow chains or the flow chart of all the different chains coming off of just that one paragraph. And this is the surface level stuff. This is going to get drilled down into eternity to account for every single step of the process that would potentially apply here, defining all of these terms. So note, the Treasury is going to define what a large institutional investor is and what a single-family home is. And then, once the Treasury Secretary has defined them, using those definitions, Agriculture, HUD, VA, GSA, and FHFA are going to then implement policies, guidance for all of these constraints. And then on top of that, they will also issue guidance for how to dispose of federal assets in a manner that transfers a single home to a large institutional investor, and on top of that, promotes sales to individual owner-occupants, including through anti-circumvention provisions, first-look policies, and disclosure requirements. So if federal assets are being sold, if there's federally owned single-family homes, then they are going to, issue guidance on disposing of federal assets in a manner that transfers a single-family home to a large institutional investor. And you're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to sell single-family homes owned by the federal government to a large institutional investor. And also, they have to promote sales to individual owner-occupants. So this means they need to, when they're selling federally owned homes, they need to be prioritize that they go to an individual owner-occupant, not just a guy who has 3 homes that he's looking to add his 4th to his portfolio. And then it says, the guidance issued pursuant to this other subsection of this section shall include appropriate, narrowly tailored exceptions for build-to-rent properties that are planned, permitted, financed, and constructed as rental communities, and such other appropriate, narrowly tailored exceptions as the applicable agency may determine appropriate to further the policies of my administration. This is when someone's like, why don't they just do something? This is what doing something looks like. This sort of thing does not just spring out of somebody's asshole somewhere. All of these people who are demanding that they just do something are literally Will Stancil. They're like anti-communist Will Stancil or something. Somebody needs to do something. Well, this is what doing something is like. So if your eyes start glazing over with this, then you don't have the stomach for doing something. Also adding additional measures to combat speculation in single-family housing markets by large institutional investors. I'm sure this is going to affect Fannie and Freddie. The Secretary of the Treasury shall review the rules and guidance that relate to large institutional investors acquiring or holding single-family homes and consider revising them in accordance with applicable law if appropriate to advance the policy I set forth in Section 1 of this order. The Attorney General and the Chairman of the FTC shall review substantial acquisitions, including series of acquisitions by large institutional investors of single-family homes in local single-family housing markets for anti-competitive effects and prioritize enforcement of the antitrust laws as appropriate against coordinated vacancy and pricing strategies by large institutional investors in local single-family home rental markets. So they're going to be, this is another thing that I didn't hear anybody talking about this until guys in our corner of the internet started bringing it up like 6 months ago. Anti-competitive effects and the coordinated vacancy and pricing strategies by large institutional investors. Because in case you didn't know, what they would do is they would go buy up a home in a neighborhood, and then they would go buy another one, and then buy another one, and they would get some that are all comps with each other, and then they would just start raising the rents on them, coordinating the rents and the prices of the homes. So they would go to flip the home, and it looks like it's just going through some sort of flipper or something, but they would intentionally raise the prices on all of them. They would coordinate this around a community, so they would artificially inflate their property values by collaborating on it. This is part of why the housing market has gotten so out of hand. But again, to target that sort of behavior, it's going to take something that's really, really finely tuned, and it's going to take a while. The best way, honestly, to get institutional investors out of crowding the single-family housing market is just by yelling at them for it a lot and periodically busting someone. So you got to put the legal basis for it there, and then you need to go bust someone. And you need to yell about it constantly and put tons of political pressure on it and just crowd them out of it. Make it like a social stench to be associated with something like that. And then there's guidance here for HUD, for owners and managing agents of single-family home rentals participating in federal housing assistance programs, have to do a bunch of extra disclosures. And then Deputy Chief of Staff for Legislative, Political, and Public Affairs shall prepare a legislative recommendation to codify the policy set forth in Section 1 of this order so that large institutional investors do not acquire single-family homes that could otherwise be purchased by families. So they're trying to nudge Congress. This is really kind of a token effort, I think, but there's the possibility of being able to lean on them and nudge Congress into actually doing something like this. But it would require, you'd either have to break the filibuster or get a supermajority. Now you might be, or not a supermajority, but at least 60. And then, okay, just the stuff at the bottom. So, yet another thing. Trump's greatest victory is that he gave hard men license to square off with soft men. He's even paying them to do it. Here's a little bit of cathartic cinema for you guys.
Out of our city! Get out of our state! Get out of here, bitch! Get out of our state!
Yoink! Now here, if you guys have not followed an appeal to pragmatism on Telegram, I'm giving you the easiest possible way. I'm going to literally link 2 posts. So all you have to do, if you're listening to this afterwards, so if you're listening live, you just got to wait till it's posted. But if you're listening afterwards, all you have to do is scroll. If you're on Substack, or if you're listening on the podcast, just scroll down and go click on the link and go follow an appeal to pragmatism on Telegram. Leave the notifications on and just take like a week and read every single thing that comes through there. And tell me if you don't have your brain rearranged by the end of that week. Non-stop white pills, and white pills of substance, not just hype, but white pills of substance. Trump and Miller slashing legal immigration by 33 to 50%. President Trump's 2026 visa restrictions are currently slated to cut legal immigration, specifically immigrants accessing green cards, by 1.5 to 2.5 million legal migrants. The entry of relatives is narrowed, refugees are record low, green card lottery is halted. This does not include the almost 3 million legal statuses threatened, half of which are already set as terminated, or Trump's roadblocks against non-immigrants, legal migrants who aren't permanent, such as H-1B, H-2B, who are seeing a separate approximately 50% decline in admissions so far through 2026. And then another one. Trump trusts. The whole problem we are having with criminals in our country was caused by Sleepy Joe Biden and the radical left thugs that surrounded the resolution desk, in the Oval Office, and of course the illegal use of the auto pen. They should be in jail. And appeal to pragmatism says, whenever President Trump makes these kinds of statements saying this should happen or X should be done, that is part of statesmanship. It's advocacy in public. Many people read these and reply, "You're the president, do it now." That's not how a commander works. Commanders suggest as much as they direct, ask, and authorize, pushing for other authorities to fall in line beneath, beside, and around his command. This is why I don't really want Congress doing anything. There are some things that we need Congress to do. Otherwise, I want Congress to stop existing. And the best, quickest way they can stop existing is get as many of them as possible who will simply fall in line behind as much of Trump's agenda as possible. This is why I prefer Lindsey Graham to Thomas Massie or Rand Paul. Appeal to pragmatism says, this is why loyal people need to pursue and occupy ranks as bureaucrats, judges, sheriffs, officers, advisors of people, and canvassers of policy to multiply the power of one office into a force of a whole state. I'm going to have some stuff tomorrow about talking about Trump and his endorsements for Congress and some commentary on that. But I'll just say for now that to whatever extent you think the GOP is letting Trump down, or the GOP is the enemy class, to whatever degree you think that's the case, you should take that as a personal affront to your honor, that you have allowed that to happen. If every single one of us started behaving that way and started taking over these different organizations and actually engaging in political action that is productive, that is geared toward accomplishing things, not just emoting, then suddenly you could start getting a whole bunch of institutions to fall in line. That's what we want. There's this big sprawling bureaucracy, and you could try to get rid of all of it, or you can attack it from every possible angle and direct it, force it into the wake being carved by our great Cheeto Mussolini as he plows forward. because you know he's going to keep plowing forward. If there's anything my president loves, it's plowing. Hey, Mystery Grove deactivated again. Well, I don't remember what Mystery Grove said exactly, but Fugitive Caesar here said Minnesota is an ideal place for the Trump administration to fight rather than Chicago, California, or New York. It's a small state with meager resources. Somalians are cartoonishly primitive, and the North is cold, distant, and brutal. This is the testing ground for future actions. A long battle of attrition is ideal here, forcing leftists to deploy a shallow pool of street volunteers into faraway bitter cold to defend lazy Africans who aren't willing to turn out in street protests. Later states like California, New York, or Illinois should be fast and hard. You couldn't ask for better conditions for the federal government to invade entrenched Democrat insurgents and force the leftists to defend unfavorable territory for a prolonged fight. We are already in the war. The war is already underway. This is what it looks like. This is the way the war is being conducted. And he says everyone wants a quick, decisive, dramatic victory like Rommel, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, or Patton would deliver. We're instead fighting an 1864 Grant-style campaign of brutal, grinding attrition. Relax and embrace the suck. This will be slow and relentless. I want you all to understand we are winning siege warfare, and the slow tempo is purposeful. I've got direct quotes from Vladimir Putin later on that just remember this when we get there. Vladimir Putin recognizes exactly what Trump is doing because he is intimately acquainted with the idea of siege warfare and slow grinding attrition. Don't be demoralized when you see a lack of immediate results. Everything is going according to plan. Our strategy is designed around exhaustion, rotation, and never allowing leftists to rest. Yeah, Fugitive Caesar kind of looked like he went through a couple weeks of darkness there, but he has seen the light again. He's one of our greatest posters, and he is a great example. When he trusts, he's a great example of exactly how to truce. Tyler says, also, I think to some degree by going after Walz' estate and Walz himself, it further delegitimizes the DNC for making him a VP candidate. Very good point. Very good point. And it's a key potential swing state. Like it's in that Midwest sort of broad demographic where it's on the left end of those Midwest states, but making substantial progress there is gonna really hit home for a lot of other Midwest states as well. Camo Aquatica says the key caveat is that attrition campaigns have to be small and local or done digitally, since those are the only areas where the admin has an advantage. Yes, that's another good point. Yeah. But the great thing is that if they can successfully begin to stack wins, as they have been, if they can continue to stack wins on this attrition campaign, then they're going to build up momentum. They're going to pick up political steam going forward. And especially if they get a couple of substantial wins from SCOTUS, like on the tariffs or some of these other things, or the Voting Rights Act, a few things like that would really put some wind in their sails. Because look at these numbers. This is from Rasmussen. I think, you guys probably know what I would say about Mark Mitchell, but I think Rasmussen is still a good polling outlet for now. And even if it's not, look at these numbers. Do you approve or disapprove of the Trump administration's program to find and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally? Was this? Okay, yeah. So, approve. 62% of all voters say that they approve of the Trump administration's program to find and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. This is a poll done after the shooting of Renee Bad. All voters say, 62% of all voters say, yes, we approve. That is comprised of, now look at these breakdowns. 65% of men, 59% of women. So there's not even a huge gap between men and women. This is broadly popular across both sexes. Then look at the ages. 18 to 39, so basically millennials and Zoomers. 57% say they approve. 40 to 54, so essentially Gen X, 66% approve. And then boomers, 59% approve. I don't know if I've ever seen a poll like this on any issue where there's broad approval by men and women and all age demographics. And then look at this. Whites, 60%. Blacks, 59%. Hispanics, 63%. Other, 74%. 42% of Democrats. 42% of Democrats say that they approve of the Trump administration's program to find and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally.
White males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males way up.
So true, Zuber Dylan. And then 64% of independents and 80% of Republicans. If anything, the 80% of Republicans might be the second most shocking number here. The rest of these actually all kind of make sense to one degree or another. Only 80% of Republicans? But notice that independents are disproportionately tilted toward Republicans on the issue and away from Democrats. So the broadest part of the electorate is overwhelmingly in favor of this. The Trump administration is not going to be losing points with the electorate over immigration. This is a winning message. So attacking the Trump administration on this is attacking them head on like their strongest, most popular issue. Look at this. We've talked about this guy before, Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney for Southern California. I think is it Central District. It's the Central District, so it covers the L.A. area. He says a friendly reminder. First of all, Jimmy Gomez from, where's Jimmy Gomez from? L.A. So member of Congress from L.A. said, alert, my office has received reports of heavy ICE presence near 12th and Maple in downtown L.A. in the Fashion District. Agents are actively walking the area. If you have info, report it to the LA Rapid Response Network with a phone number. And Bill Asaley says, a friendly reminder that the public has a First Amendment right to call the number below and provide inaccurate information. The U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California is encouraging you to clog the lines on their ICE tracking report system. He says, it is unlawful to impede federal agents, but there is no prohibition on impeding radical organizations working to harbor criminal illegal immigrants. Dial away. This is a U.S. federal prosecutor instructing, interesting. Air Force One turned around and landed due to electrical issues. Trump will change planes and head to Davos. Interesting. So yes, a federal prosecutor is asking you to do your part, Anon. You need to go raid the phone systems of the Democrat organizers as they try to disrupt ICE. You've been given an explicit instruction to go do it. And then look at this. So this is a 911 call from Friday. What's happening is people are following, like they're doing the Will Stancil thing. They're following these ICE vehicles around and honking at them. They're just following them everywhere. Honk, 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 and blowing whistles and like trying to alert everyone that they're there. And so what ICE has started doing is running the plates of the retards who are following them, getting their home addresses, and then leading the retards back to their own homes. They're getting their plates in the rearview mirror, finding where the vehicle is registered, and driving to the person's house. Hey, hello, we just brought you to your own house, motherfucker. So here's a real 911 call. Caller is a civilian commissioner for police oversight in Minneapolis, has been receiving info from several people who have been recording ICE agents that when they follow agents, the agents are leading the followers to their personal homes. CLR believes federal agents are running plates to gather addresses, possible NCIC misuse, and followers are concerned for their own well-being. CLR has hopes that MPD, Minneapolis Police Department, could respond to the homes of the followers as a deterrent and to show support for the community members. So these people are turning around and calling Minneapolis PD and asking that they come get into a standoff with ICE, with federal agents. They are trying to provoke a standoff between local police and federal agents. A bunch of local police just quit and were immediately hired by ICE. ICE went to them and was like, "We want to hire you. We are going to pay you well. You know the local area. We'll hire you." Because the local police don't want to be put in this situation. So their morale is really low. They're super demoralized. And fucking Tim Walz just announced a 20 weeks paid leave, mandatory paid leave program for the state. So a bunch of these Minneapolis PD officers are like, "Yeah, I'll just take some paid leave now, thanks. You can send some other schmuck to go try to fight federal agents. I'm not doing that." This is some epic shit that's going on right now. Now, I'm just gonna. This is one of those, like, this is a video form, but it's like, you know, the meme of the Giga Chad and who's like beaming happy about something, and the and the screaming soy jack who's very upset about the same thing. Yeah, that's what we've got here.
And then this one's my favorite. I don't know if you know this, but you guys have $858 million, again, almost $1 billion, okay, of money to give out bonuses to people. And so listen, bonuses are great when people do good work, but $858 million sounds like a lot of money. That's like a $40,000 bonus to every employee in all of ICE. So we'll have it.
What's that? They have almost $1 billion worth of bonuses allocated for ICE. Potentially $40,000 worth of bonuses for ICE. And you want to tell me they're not serious about mass deportations? They are paying incredibly handsomely for people to go deport people.
$500 million. How about $500 million?
Listen to this.
For bonuses. Okay? We can do this together.
Here's where the libs are. The libs are like, no. Don't give them $40,000 bonuses. Just give them $25,000 bonuses. It's called the art of the deal. The libs are demanding that we give $25,000 annual bonuses to every member of ICE.
Can show the American people there's like a little bit of waste here. So I can help you capture, Mr. Chairman, $903 million. We can save $1 billion together. Show the American people we're serious.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Of course I will.
You raise a profoundly serious point in your inimitable way, Mr. Moskowitz. Well, the bonuses, that is a huge bonus budget.
Yeah.
What does that work out? Have you done the math to see what that works out in terms of bonus per ICE employee?
$42,000 for every employee in a bonus, in addition to their salary.
A $42,000 bonus?
Yeah, $42,000. And because you and I sometimes are symbiotic, you're probably going to ask me, what is the average bonus for the American worker in this country?
Do you know what that is?
It's $2,500.
That's the average Christmas bonus is $2,500.
The average Christmas bonus, because Christmas is back, the average Christmas bonus
so true.
is $2,500, but they want to give $42,000. And what I would suggest in my amendment is instead of $42,000, they get $25,000. That sounds like a lot of money.
Well, it seems to me you've probably hit upon the one thing we really could effectuate a compromise on, although I don't know that we're going to be able to talk to them about it, but maybe they'll just vote for it.
I mean, listen, if no one there wants to talk, bring in Comer. He'll definitely talk to me.
Again, I would vastly prefer that Congress just not do anything. Just do this all day. Literally, this is the best use of Congress. Just do this all day. Sit in there and bloviate. Be like the British Parliament. Just sit in there and like bloviate and do a whole bunch of stuff and be really performative and do nothing. Just do nothing. But the silver lining on all of this is that they have fully accepted we're not going to be defunding ICE. That's not even something a conversation worth having. We're now at the point where we're just like, hey, give them smaller bonuses, okay? Like, we understand you're going to give them bonuses. Just give them smaller bonuses. Only $25,000. Only 10x the normal American's bonus. You know, we don't need to get completely out of hand here. I mean, I do think we need to get completely out of hand, but this is what Jamie Raskin and Jared Moskowitz have been reduced to. That's right, Trust Plan Star. We set the tempo now. There's a theme you're going to see here where this has been a theme for a while now on the show, that you got to listen to the libtards. The libtards are better at talking about the wins of the administration than our own people. The libtards are doing it constantly. Look at this. Clandestine says, it's so weird to see the mainstream media reporting about Trump preparing to potentially invoke the Insurrection Act. They even address the National Guard Quick Reaction Force. It's like the last 7 months of my posts condensed into a short video. Surreal.
The Pentagon has ordered 1,500 active-duty soldiers
NPR
to prepare
voice.
for a possible deployment to Minnesota, 2 U.S. officials told Reuters on Sunday. That follows a threat by President Donald Trump to use the Insurrection Act to quell protests there against the government's deportation drive. The Army placed the units on prepare-to-deploy orders in case violence in the Midwestern state escalates, the officials said, though it was not clear whether any of them would be sent. The soldiers subject to deployment specialize in cold weather operations, according to the officials. They're assigned to Army infantry battalions under the 11th Airborne Division based in Alaska, seen here in previously released Defense Department footage. The Pentagon and the White House did not immediately respond to Reuters' requests for comment on the order. It was first reported by ABC News. Trump on Thursday had warned...
So we're going to send guys with... we're going to... paratroopers. We're paratrooping into Mogadishu. The cold weather specialists. They're sending the cold weather specialists to parachute into Mogadishu and kidnap Tim Walz and his entire government. That's what the libs are saying.
Minnesota officials to stop protesters from targeting Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE agents. Otherwise, he said in a social media post, quote, I will institute the Insurrection Act. The federal law gives the president the power to deploy the military or federalize National Guard troops to stop domestic uprisings. But the president can deploy active duty forces for certain domestic purposes, such as protecting federal property, even without invoking the act. In addition, the Pentagon could also attempt to deploy newly created National Guard Rapid Response Forces for civil disturbances. Trump has sent nearly...
Look at the giraffe! Nigga out there in a giraffe suit, about to get tossed into a snowbank.
3,000 federal agents from ICE and Border Patrol to Minneapolis and neighboring St. Paul since early last week. Confrontation Patrol to Minneapolis and neighboring
That
St.
giraffe
Paul
wearing a thong? The giraffe is wearing a thong! What the fuck is going on?
Early last week. Confrontations between residents and the
Special
officers
forces
have
now!
intensified since an ICE agent shot dead U.S. citizen Renee Good on January the 7th.
I need Delta Force to go assassinate... I probably shouldn't say that. I probably shouldn't utter that whole phrase aloud. I'm just joking!
Local leaders have accused the Republican president of federal overreach and of exaggerating isolated episodes of violence to justify sending in troops.
Now, here's the thing. They're pimping the giraffes. Mr. President, they're pimping the giraffes. Animal cruelty. The libs' degeneracy knows no bounds. We must purge the libs. Save the giraffes. Let me see what I had next here before I decide if I want to say something. Okay, yeah. I'm just going to keep this going because what I was about to say is stuff that I'm about to say coming up here. So, Dissident West is calling out, and of course, Owen Schroyer has been just a massive coal poster for a while now. Dissident West says Trump is handling the Minnesota riots the same way he handled the George Floyd riots. This was always my biggest concern with the second Trump administration. He proved in 2020 he doesn't have what it takes to silence leftist mobs. And now it's happening all over again. At what point do these people just get their internet access revoked? Like, can we send some like special ops forces in there to can we SWAT these guys and kick them off the internet? Can we like geo-track them around and just put like a Faraday cage around them or something? How do you go on the internet and just tell lies like this? America First Insight, which is a great account, by the way, you should follow him, at AF_Insight. The Trump administration is doubling down, sending more federal resources into Minneapolis. They've already begun to arrest some people, as they do not arrest during the incidents because there's no local law enforcement to back them up. The Minneapolis riots are absolutely not being handled the same way. There is still no legal basis for the Insurrection Act, in our opinion, as the law is plenty enforceable at this moment. This genuinely sounds like someone who is not around for 2020. This is the thing. They don't need to invoke the Insurrection Act because the violence has not reached the point that would justify it. You want to see it invoked just because it'll make you get like hard in your pants or something. And yeah, it would get you hard in your pants, but it's not necessary. There's a good chance that it has a legitimate legal objection to it right now. And they're containing the situation without it. It would be overkill right now. I'm showing you all this stuff about how it's being contained. The fact that it's contained doesn't mean zero bad things are happening. But that's not the standard. The standard isn't make sure that zero bad things are happening. The standard is contain the situation where the bad things are happening. And it is contained. And they're using this as an opportunity to build up a process for duplicating this everywhere else. They're steadily sending more and more people in there. They've got just about every single federal agency in there investigating, building up cases, financially, criminally, RICO, all this stuff. This is how the process works. They're approaching this very aggressively. Guys like Dissident West, or whoever Dissident West is, they just have like SWAT brain, like the daytime TV show. They've just got they've been brain rotted by Hollywood, and they think that the only way that you respond to this is by sending the army in there to just start arresting people. You know what's probably not going to play real well? If you have the Insurrection Act actively declared in the lead up to an election. That's going to be real tough to sell to the normie American who is still extremely libertarian brained. You don't want to have an election and have the military deployed in different states if you can avoid it. The time may come where it's unavoidable, but ideally you want to avoid that happening. Once they deploy the military into some of these states, they're not going to be leaving anytime soon. Once they deploy the military into a state in this current circumstance, if they deploy the military into Minnesota, they're going to be supplanting and replacing the local government. That's going to be a pretty sustained process. So ideally, you bludgeon enough people into line that they just kind of limp their way through, and you work out the worst criminals and you prosecute the case over time. But there's no reason to escalate to the Insurrection Act yet. Even with things like this happening. In fact, things like this happening decrease the likelihood that you're going to need the Insurrection Act. So I'm not saying it's good that this happened, but I'm saying that this is a massive mistake by the libs. So a mob of anti-ICE extremists stormed a city's church in Minneapolis, disrupting a worship service and hurling baseless accusations that one of the church's lead pastors is an ICE agent. As far as I've been able to tell, the pastor actually is an ICE agent. So someone did their research.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good!
They're chanting, hands up, don't shoot.
Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? I'm not going to comment. You have no comment, exactly. You... Renee Good! Renee Good! Freedom! We have a duty to We must love and support one another. All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the words? No! Jesus would dine with immigrants. You do not touch me. Touch me again and see what happens. Hey, you can't. You are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy life while people are starving.
Notice the criticism here. The criticism is, you are bad Christians. They're being attacked for not being Christian enough. The shit lib, the atheist shit lib, is a Christian. Their entire worldview is framed around the moral superstructure of Christianity. It's just what Christianity turns into when you take Christ out of it.
Shame! Out now! Out now! Living real comfortable while the people starve. Living real comfortable while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're all living real comfortable, aren't you? Shame on you. Do something. Stand with the Somalis. Stand with the Latinos. Quit ignoring this injustice. He wears a suit and tie and he hangs out with Kristi Noem. How is that a Christian? You're supposed to accept all immigrants, are you not? Why are you not going down to Whipple and joining us in protest against this inhumanity? You claim to be a Christian. Act like one.
The reason I played that is so you would see all the different things and all the different ways that they have completely just wholly implicated themselves in multiple different crimes on camera as federal agents are descending in and around the area and looking for all sorts of different reasons to scoop anyone up. Now, one person you did not see in all of that was Don Lemon, because this is what Don Lemon was up to. He was there with them. As Wade Stott says, a man with responsibilities gets ambushed by a sodomite with a podcast. Don Lemon was there in the rest of the group. He's a journalist. He's just embedded in there. He's just documenting it.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here. Yes. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. Yeah. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now, before that happened, this is what Don Lemon posted.
They're getting the operation together again. This is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out.
A secret operation they invited folks out for.
Tell you what is going to happen, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show. There are for this reason it may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here.
So they are intentionally, he's laying this all out ahead of time. They planned on this down to the level of intentionally getting as many white people there so that they can go undertake this secret operation where white people are very, very necessary.
So that is what I could say. I turned our camera off of them because they're giving some critical information here. But there we go. Everybody's ready to go. Let's go. Okay. Thank you guys thanks for allowing me to be here. Thank you guys.
Okay.
How are you? Good to see you. We're on. We're not saying what it is, what's going on, but
he greets her with a kiss. He's just an objective journalist here, right? He's just documenting what's going on. He just got alerted ahead of time that they'd planned this out, and they're going to this particular church because the pastor there is an ICE agent. So somebody did some research and figured out this pastor is an ICE agent. So that's the church that we're going to target with a group of people that's disproportionately comprised of white people. So we're going there with some sort of racial motivation to target the pastor at this church during the church service.
Thank you. Tell us, why are you doing this?
So
this is Nakima Levy Armstrong. She's on the show on Friday.
Levy Armstrong, civil rights attorney, longtime activist here in the community.
Civil rights attorney, community activist, and she describes herself as a reverend.
And, we protest and do activism in all kinds of ways. This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there. And then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now. We've had a lot.
So this sort of operation that we're doing, our intent is to go somewhere where people don't expect us to be there and then to disrupt business as usual.
The success with the times we have done Operation Pull Up.
Yeah.
After George Floyd was killed, we went to the Police Federation head's home and staged a demonstration there. We also went to the head of the U.S. Marshals from Minnesota after Winston Smith was killed by the U.S. Marshals. We went there after Dante Wright was killed when AG Keith Ellison.
So, this guy here, I've got a few more things on this subject. This guy here is, I've been seeing more and more of him on the timeline recently. Goth Daddy, Jake Monroe. This is his commentary on the whole situation.
Look at this wee man. Look at this. Look, laughing, jokey, funny stuff, right? Ha Don Lemon, you fucking retard. Ha. And then it all becomes real whenever you see this kid's face. You see this dad trying to console him. Right there, that's one of those instances where it's like, what radicalized you? This fucking photo did. It's this little man's world, right? It's his daily schedule, family outings on Sundays. His world is safe, and he knows how it works. And all of a sudden, you've got these narcissistic, suicidal douchebags who don't care. In fact, worse than don't care, according to Don Lemon, want to traumatize this kid. They want to scare him. They want to make all these innocent people feel uncomfortable. It's not that they don't care that they're affecting people in this way. They're fucking trying to. And this is absolutely fucking reprehensible. This image right here with this poor fucking kid and the dad doing his best to make sure he's okay, making sure he feels safe. This should be enough to make people stand the fuck up and be like, do you know what? You're done. This moral posturing, pretending to be the good guys, the virtuous, you are all snakes and demons.
No more games. I want Trump to issue death warrants now against all these people. I want them killed. I want them dead now.
So true, Alex. So true. And so true, Goth Daddy. Now, Miss Harmeet Dillon, who I gotta admit it, man. I am a big fan of Harmeet Dillon. I think she does say and do some dumb stuff sometimes on the timeline, but I think she is overwhelmingly a net positive. And if you're not sure about her still, I encourage you to go find her conversation with Tucker Carlson before the election. I think this probably would have been in September or October of 2024. Harmeet Dillon talking to Tucker Carlson. Go listen to that. She has been Johnny on the spot with this. So here's her talking to Benny Johnson.
We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us.
So the FACE Act, I'll go into more detail on this here in another clip coming up shortly, the detail of what the FACE Act is. But the best part of this is the Klan Act. She just pulls this out. Just all of a sudden, you have an event that happens like this, and she's like, okay, the FACE Act, and then we could do a Klan Act. We can apply the Klan Act here as well to escalate the charges. Because from a little bit of research I was able to do, the FACE Act, the initial your initial violation under the FACE Act is a misdemeanor. So you have to attach some sort of a rider or something like that to escalate it to a felony. The Klan Act, it's almost as if they've been prepared for a situation like this, and they know exactly how they're going to prosecute it when it happens.
Funded this. What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
I've just pulled up the Klan Act because...
So note the different things she mentions there. Were there wire transfers that were involved in this? Was money wired from one place to another? Did someone cross state borders? You know, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Did someone come from outside the state and come into the state? Well, that introduces other federal charges. These are things that have to be run to ground. So the idea that something like that's going to happen and you're going to get an arrest like the same day or the same week is absurd. This is the way that a federal investigation proceeds, and it cannot proceed any other way. Mellon says that's a broader point. Many of these things require organic trigger events. You cannot just flip the switch. Enemy does it too. Yes. Yes. He says this hasn't been explained in autist terms to autists, so they get confused. That's a good point. Maybe I'll start emphasizing that for the autists out there. Many of these things require an organic event to trigger it, particularly while they're maintaining optics. You complain about Trump optics cucking or whatever. Many of these things, they require the enemy to do something first. The enemy does not want to be in the proactive state. The enemy wants to react. So they're trying to bait the administration into doing something, trying to pull them down an alleyway somewhere. And so the administration's posture is we're going to wait until you cross a line and you fuck up in a way that we can attack it with our flank covered. And in this case, that's more than they've got more than that, but it is going to take, like, if we had prosecutions coming down within a week or 2 weeks, or indictments coming down within like a week or 2 weeks, if they start arresting people like by the end of the month, that will be incredible. Especially with the big storm and everything that's coming in, the potential for there to be flight delays and communications disruptions and all that sort of thing. They will be moving at light speed if they start arresting people for this before the end of the month. In federal investigation terms, that would be impressive as hell.
This is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is an act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an affinity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act, because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a man, a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there. So it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation, but the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us, Harmeet?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. And in fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies. And so what the Biden administration did is, if three grandmas got together to pray outside an abortion clinic for the souls of the people inside, and including unborn children, they would say, oh, that's not just a violation of the Klan Act, that's a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of women going in there to get abortions. And so we're going to add additional charges and punish that more and make it from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act. And President Trump pardoned.
So you get that there. There's the misdemeanor under the FACE Act, but the Biden administration would add the Klan Act to escalate it to a felony. So this is a conspiracy to violate rights. Another thing people like to bring up a lot is the autists, I guess, like to bring up a lot that after January 6th, they just went in and arrested people and scooped them up really quickly. Or in all these other cases, like the Justice Department would move with lightning speed. And why doesn't the Trump Justice Department move with the same speed? Like, do you even understand what the fucking Justice Department is? This isn't a TV show where it's like the one main character makes a phone call to the other main character and is like, I want this prosecuted. And main character number 2 goes, sir, yes, sir, and marches over, and then quickly there's like a change of scene, and he's at the other place with all the guys there to arrest him and like read him his rights, and then they go back, and he goes and sits down and starts interrogating him. That's how it works in TV shows. That's not how it actually works. Yes, the Department of Justice is full of traitors and subversives, and they cannot all be purged all at one time. So you need to prosecute cases that you can prosecute with a Department of Justice full of subversives and traitors. And you need to do it in such a way that it can actually get through all of that. Which means it has to take even longer than it normally would. And they're also working on an insane number of things, yes. Like reviewing and redacting all the fucking Epstein files. Imagine how much faster they could work on these sorts of things if they weren't focused on the fucking Epstein files to satisfy a bunch of autistic faggots online.
And the pro-life protesters in those cases. I have recently defended successfully in the 11th Circuit a case called Oropesa, a case of Jane's Revenge, the pro-abortion protesters violently attacking crisis pregnancy centers in Florida, and we had the court uphold the Klan Act criminal enhancement to the FACE Act. So I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the point is, there are a number of things. The FACE Act is just the start. Like I said, you have material support for disruptive activities. You have conspiracy to violate civil rights. You have potentially the use of other instrumentalities to commit crimes. And so some of these folks who did this have self-identified. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility and then he began, quote unquote, committing journalism. And as if that's sort of a shield from being an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. And so, we're getting
Done Lemon. Yeah, he's about to be done Lemon.
our ducks in a row. We're putting the facts together. And this is a very serious matter. Come next Sunday, nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this. Everyone in the protest community needs to know that the fullest force of the federal government is going to come down and prevent this from happening and put people away for a long, long time.
We got this great occurrence on the internet. From Benny Johnson, breaking, DOJ announces intention to charge Don Lemon under the Ku Klux Klan Act. Nicki Minaj quote tweets with praying hands and an American flag. And this guy says, if you described this image to people in 2012, you'd be put in a straitjacket. Just gaze upon it for a moment. Imagine sending this to yourself. You're the 2012 version. Fuck, imagine sending this to the 2024 version of yourself. The 2025 version of yourself. You could have sent this to me in November of 2025, and I would have been like, what in the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? charging Don Lemon under the Ku Klux Klan Act, and Nicki Minaj is happy about it? I barely believe it's real now. Pub Wanghalf, one of our greatest posters, he himself has been on a generational run of late. Posts and memes from the mind of a 17-year-old boy with Down syndrome named Eric and his brother Pub. Eric is a patriot, by the way. So you should go follow at Pub Wanghalf so you can get updates on Eric. He says, generation run for Trump. I have been replaying this in my head and laughing about it. I've done it dozens of times already. It's got the Ed McMahon meme. For the people who are, you got to just look at the meme. You got to see the screen. If you're listening right now, you got to look at the screen. You got to go get the tweet from Pub Wanghalf out of the show notes later and just view the tweet. It's the Ed McMahon gif, federally charging a black man with the KKK Act on MLK Day. Generational run for Trump. Incredible. One of the greatest posts of all time. He said, if everyone could please argue in the comments about whether Don Lemon will face any charges, please do. Especially blue checkmark accounts. It really helps with my X payout. Patriot. One of our greatest posters. Make sure you go follow the man. So then here's a video on CNN of just under 3 minutes of one lefty telling another that Don Lemon et al., are basically cooked with the requisite coping, seething, and non sequiturs. This here is a great moment for you guys to quench yourself with the shrieks and wails of demoralized libtards.
And Stacey Schneider joins the table. And Stacey, let me start with you, counselor. What does the law say about protesting in a church like this?
Yeah, the law says that these protesters are in trouble. There's a federal statute called FACE, F-A-C-E, that says if you interfere or physically obstruct another person's First Amendment right to exercise their freedom of practicing their religion, it is a federal crime. Now, had these protesters stood outside the church,
just real quick, this is the FACE Act is from 1994. It prohibits use or threat of force, physical obstruction, or intimidation at places of worship and reproductive health facilities. What an odd thing, what an odd pair of things to put together. It's almost like reproductive health facilities are a form of a place of worship. What are they worshiping? Prohibits intentional property damage at those facilities and allows the Attorney General to seek injunctive relief, damages, and civil penalties against violators.
been on the sidewalk, been on the street, they likely would have been protected by their First Amendment right to protest. But you're allowed to protest in a public forum, but that right is not absolute. They crossed the line when they went inside a church. And I think of it almost like, a church is public property. Imagine if protesters went inside a hospital to protest Medicaid or health policy and interrupted treatment of patients. It's really not that different.
But ICE officers do that. ICE officers have been going into hospitals. They have been going into churches. Donald Trump said they were allowed to go into churches. They're going to schools. They're picking out parents from drive-by lines. And these people in the neighborhood just found out that their pastor of the church is a high-ranking ICE official. So I think if you're a church that has an ICE person as a pastor, it's already political, and he's running the church. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think this has... I know, but I don't think this has anything to do with faith, and I think that the community is making it a faith issue. I think this is about politics and power. Well, it does have to do with faith, and I'll tell you what. It was inside a church, and religious practice was going on inside the church. They basically allegedly stormed into the church, interrupted it, disrupted it, physically blockaded it, and not only is a federal law possibly involved, and I don't think the state is going to pursue this, but they could be found guilty of a trespass, allegedly, for entering that church with the intent to commit unlawful activity. I don't know that the state's going to pursue anything. The feds definitely have signaled they are, and I think they need lawyers at this point. But I think the feds are signaling that they are.
This woman saying all of this, she is a lib. She is not happy to be saying all this. You'll get that in just a second.
In many ways, like Todd Blanche is here saying the full weight of the law. We're sending the FBI, the DHS, all these people in because these people stormed a church. This is the same Todd Blanche that's saying we are not investigating our officer shooting someone in the face. Like, if you are more upset about a group of people storming in and chanting in a church than you are about a civilian being shot in her own car in her own neighborhood, then I think we've lost the plot here.
I agree with you that the way the government has executed their entire business in Minneapolis has been disgraceful and frankly un-American, the way they're behaving. But ICE is law enforcement. They do have rights to be in certain places at certain times. You have the right to free speech. But the manner and place of your speech can be controlled and is controlled by First Amendment guidelines and case law. So I think they have a problem from what they, the way they did it.
Remember those numbers that I showed you. Where were they? Can I get back to them quickly here? Or is it going to take me looking at a whole bunch of tabs? Yeah, here we go. Remember these numbers. Do you approve or disapprove of the Trump administration's program to find and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally? 62% of voters and 42% of Democrats approve of the Trump administration's program to find and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. This woman that I just showed you on this video here does not approve of what the federal government is doing in Minnesota. And she's like, no, you don't have any room to argue. These people are dead to rights, absolutely guilty, are 100% going to be prosecuted, and should be prosecuted for what they did. This was a substantial escalation by the libs. And I showed you the people who did it. These are not brilliant masterminds. The shot callers on something like this are not doing this because they're like, oh, we've got the masterful plan for how we're going to bait the federal government in and trap them and then execute our masterful, we invoke our Deus Ex Machina that comes in and saves the day for us. No, these are retarded people who just fucked up big time. Now, be prepared for a whole lot of hewing and moaning and crying about a gay black man being arrested. He's literally the new MLK. Speaking of, the Trump administration made zero mention of MLK Day yesterday. First time ever that the president has not acknowledged it in some capacity. Just completely ignored it. No federal agency tweeted about it or talked about it or promoted it or anything. It was just ignored. And this afternoon from Bill Malugin says DOJ sources confirmed to Fox News that 6 grand jury subpoenas were served in Minnesota today in relation to conspiring to impede federal law enforcement, including offices of Governor Walz, AG Keith Ellison, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, the St. Paul Mayor, and Ramsey and Hennepin counties. So grand jury subpoenas issued for prominent political figures in Minnesota. Is the stream still up? Everything looks like it just went sideways on my screen here. I want to make sure that I'm still live. I haven't seen any F's in the chat yet. The stream is still up. Okay, good. So there you go. There's your subpoenas. Next step in the process. It's like everyone expects there to be this big gratifying moment where all of a sudden it's like, oh, fuck yeah. Oh, I'm coming. But this is what winning is. This is what it looks like. The next step. 6 grand jury subpoenas served. And the process continues. It continues grinding forward. Slowly but surely. All right, now let's talk a little bit about tariffs and Europe, the Eurofags, and Greenland. And then I've got a couple of videos here from speeches given. I've got one video from Howard Lutnick at Davos, and then I've got 2 videos. One is an interview of Scott Bessent. Another is a speech by Scott Bessent given at Davos. And then also a couple, some if we get to it, there's stuff from Macron and Carney as well. So I got to kind of push through this kind of quick, but I got some reading to do for you guys. So Kobayashi letter says, breaking U.S. tariff revenue surged 234% year over year in 2025 to a record $264 billion, up $185 billion compared to 2024. Now remember, the tariffs weren't actually imposed until April 2nd. That is when the tariffs first began collecting revenue. So that's January, February, March, 3 entire months, 1 full quarter with no tariff revenue. So the last 3 quarters of the year generated $264 billion not entirely, but the majority of it. Because there was tariff revenue before, but it increased substantially. In December alone, tariff revenue jumped $21 billion, or up 300% to $28 billion. So December of 2024, there was $7 billion in total tariff revenue. December of 2025, there was $28 billion. This followed $31 billion recorded in November and October. In the second half of 2025, tariff revenue averaged $30 billion a month. At this pace, tariff revenue will rise to $360 billion in 2026, up another 36% year over year. Tariff revenue is surging at an unprecedented rate. There is a graph if you're a more visual person. Yeah, that's a very nice line go up. Sightbringer. Here's our Patriot clanker. What's happening now is Empire reactivating its core software, Tribute. The U.S. has silently pivoted from voluntary participation to enforced extraction. Every container ship that enters a U.S. port is now treated as a taxable event, backed not by multilateral agreement, but by the threat of exclusion, retaliation, or collapse. This is Rome energy. Tributary state logic. Consent is no longer the operating premise. Donald Trump is raping the world! Coercion is now cleanly financialized. No tanks, no bombs, just trade routes rerouted, revenue captured, and sovereignty eroded in silence. And no one can stop it. Because the world still runs through the dollar. The beauty of this move is its elegance. Tariffs are coded as policy, but they function as economic conquest. They break rivals without triggering military backlash. They generate revenue without congressional haggling. They punish disobedience and reward submission automatically. The U.S. doesn't need to build a new system. It is enforcing its will through the existing one by flipping the protocol from free trade to tribute flow. And it's working. That's what the 234% spike really is. It's not just a headline, it's the quiet return of dominion. This shift changes everything. Global capital now flows to where force backs finance. Strategic alignment is now a tariff corridor, not a treaty. Political legitimacy is downstream of trade leverage. Political legitimacy is downstream of trade leverage. In other words, how legitimate of a government you are, how legitimate of a sovereign you are, is a derivation from what sort of market you control, what sort of leverage, whether it's the size of the market or the quality of the market. If you have a particular thing that nobody can get anywhere else, that gives you some leverage. Or if you have just a massive market that you are wielding, that is what earns you political legitimacy. There is no going back. The tributary circuit has been reestablished. Europe is too fractured to resist. China is too exposed to retaliate. The middle powers are too fragmented to coordinate, and BRICS is still theater. What you are seeing is the future. Soft empire with hard edges. Soft empire, hard edges. Now here's the loser himself. We mentioned him earlier, Thomas Massie. The masshole says selling stolen oil and putting billions of dollars in a bank in Qatar to be spent without congressional approval is not constitutional. Oh, the libertarian. The libertarian is suddenly very concerned that Congress doesn't get to be involved. No. Congress must approve. I don't want to be out of a job. Only Congress can appropriate money. The president can't legally create a second treasury overseas for his own piggy bank. Wake up, Congress. Literally posting like a fucking libtard. And he's just wrong. Simply wrong. Conan Esquire here says, I don't know why some glaze Massie is being the only honest one when the guy just lies constantly. These funds aren't stolen and they aren't public funds to be appropriated by Congress. They are foreign government deposit funds per Executive Order 14373 issued under the authority of IEPA. This has been a commonplace practice for 100 years when the executive controls foreign funds in the case of sanctions, asset freezes, etc. SCOTUS ruled in favor of the constitutionality of this in Dames and Moore v. Reagan, 1981, examining this exact statute and finding, quote, because the president's action in nullifying the attachments and ordering the transfer of the assets was taken pursuant to specific congressional authorization, it is, quote, supported by the strongest of presumptions and the widest latitude of judicial interpretation, and the burden of persuasion would rest heavily upon any who might attack it. And they also said, long continued executive practice known to and acquiesced in by Congress raises a presumption that the president's action has been taken pursuant to Congress's consent. Such practice is present here, and such a presumption is also appropriate. And finally, again, from the Supreme Court, the United States has repeatedly exercised its sovereign authority to settle the claims of its nationals against foreign countries. There has also been a long-standing practice of settling such claims by executive agreement without the advice and consent of the Senate, and this practice continues at the present time. End quote. Feel free to repeal the IEPA, Massey, but don't lie to me about it. And recall, the IEPA, which is the something Emergency Economic Protection Act. It is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That was close. Which is the statute that the whole tariff regime is built upon. So Congress has granted this authority to the executive in the past. This is not a new thing. When they're foreign government deposit funds that are seized by some sort of executive action, then the executive controls what can be done with them. They are not subject to congressional appropriation. He said another recent example. Here, this one's a little more kind of obtuse to kind of wrap your mind around. But Massey posted this. Removal of Section 453, immunity for pesticides, was a victory that might be temporary. Friday, SCOTUS will decide whether to hear the Roundup or glyphosate cancer case. Why has Pam Bondi's Solicitor General sided with German company Bayer, which sells Roundup? This is Bayer welcomes Solicitor General support for U.S. Supreme Court review. Now, the way he's presenting this, it sounds like the Solicitor General is arguing on behalf of Roundup, trying to poison our food. Well, if it sounds that way, that's because Massey is intentionally framing it that way, even though that's not what's happening. Here, Massey acts like Bondi and the feds have sided with Roundup to be allowed to poison people. I'm not a glyphosate in my food guy or a Bondi guy, but what Bondi and the feds actually did is file an amicus brief on the issue of federal preemption of state claims. Essentially, the government's argument is that the federal statute governing safety label claims, FIFRA, preempts state law causes of action based on these safety labels. Importantly, federal preemption doctrine comes from the Constitution's Supremacy Clause, as set out in these landmark cases. So what Bondi is actually doing here is very basic advocacy for the federal government to be granted the deference it's due according to the Constitution. So it has nothing to do with the actual subject matter of the case. It's just like it's an amicus brief. They're just saying, hey, FYI, please keep in mind that the Supremacy Clause, and don't rule against federal preemption authority in general. Don't rule against it in this way. Like when you issue your ruling, take into consideration this reality so that people can't take your ruling here in principle and extrapolate it into other areas where they would have state law preempting executive or federal law. He says, now, is it possible that Congress didn't intend for FIFRA to preempt state law claims arising from safety labels? Sure. The executive doesn't decide that. The judiciary does. To act like it's some absurd betrayal when the federal AG asks the court to find federal preemption in the federal statute is extremely deceptive. Again, it's an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief. They're just saying, hey, FYI, when you're evaluating this statute, keep this in mind, that federal preemption is a thing and you don't want to inadvertently rule in such a way that creates a constitutional crisis here. The real solution here, of course, is to amend FIFRA to either explicitly permit state causes of action or to create its own cause of action. But Massey, the gimmick politician par excellence, doesn't bother to do the difficult, quiet work of building support or a coalition for that. Instead, he just lies and shills for more donos. He's so far beyond the pale at this point. It's got me wondering, like, for how long has he just been straight up lying about stuff? Or did something change? He knows, he's easily smart enough to know exactly what he's doing here. He's not a lazy, unintelligent guy. So if he's just straight up lying about this stuff in a variety of different ways to attack Trump, that tells me that, if nothing else convinces me that DeSantis is going to try to run for president in 2028 again, the fact that Massey is behaving the way he does really makes me think that. Because Massey and DeSantis are close. And if he's wanting to create a pretext, he's doing like advanced work, essentially, like priming the territory for a DeSantis run by giving a bunch of attack vectors ahead of time for DeSantis to pick up on. Okay, a couple commentary things here from Sundance about this Gaza stabilization and executive board. So first, Israel is not happy that Trump appointed Turkey and Qatar to roles in assisting the Gaza stabilization and executive board. I've been told that Trump is just doing the bidding of the Zionist lobby, but he just keeps doing things that piss them off for some reason. I guess it's just to throw us off. You know, we're just not smart enough to understand the inside baseball. Sundance here says President Trump is restructuring Mideast stability without the need for direct U.S. intervention. Instead, under President Trump's approach, conflict resolution is the responsibility of the regional stakeholders with strong support from President Trump. It's a similar outlook conveyed to Europe about needing to be responsible for their own defense and security solutions while the USA role is supportive in nature. Very interesting observation here. Essentially, what Trump is trying to incentivize is the creation of sort of a regional alliance of states. And he's wanting Europe to behave in the same way. You guys need to behave as a regional alliance that's responsible for your own defense, and we're here as supportive allies. In this approach, the sharp tendrils of U.S. influence start to be untangled and the national security focus returns to the USA domestically. Mutually beneficial national sovereignty replaces toxic and unending globalist intervention. This is a similar worldview that President Trump also takes toward trade agreements. Multilateral trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership or the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or even the NAFTA-USMCA trade agreement, are rejected in favor of direct bilateral free trade agreements with individual nations. In Trump's trade policy, the multilateral deals are dissolved, while the bilateral deals are affirmed. The same outlook holds true for massive institutional agreements that end up with large entanglements, often carrying disproportionate costs and disparate benefits. Like NATO, the USA usually ends up with the largest price tag and least benefit from the agreement. Is NATO or Europe going to fight China over Taiwan? Of course not. If they were, Canada wouldn't be making deals with Beijing, and Europe would not be allowing China to purchase stakeholder interests in the European car market. The same pragmatic and reasonable outlook applies right now toward how the EU has responded to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Only willing if the USA puts our blood and treasure on the line. This nationalistic outlook was honestly encapsulated in this recent soundbite from President Trump when asked about Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney making a trade agreement with China. President Trump genuinely doesn't care. Canada can make whatever deal they want with China. However, that doesn't mean it's going to work out well for Canada when the USMCA is dissolved and a new bilateral trade deal between the USA and Canada is renegotiated. Factually, it means Canada will end up in a worse economic place. Just look at the history of countries that hugged Big Panda. It's in their own independent right to be blind to the risk. So the USMCA is going to dissolve, and there's going to be a new bilateral trade deal negotiated between the USA and Canada. And by Canada choosing to do things like snuggle up with China, they're just ensuring that the negotiating position is going to be much worse when that new bilateral trade deal starts getting hammered out. After we get Greenland, we're getting Alberta. Alberta is going to go independent. It's going to become a territory of the United States. And it's probably going to, shortly thereafter or along at the same time, is going to be Nunavut, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. There's going to be a direct land bridge to Alaska and connecting into Greenland as well. This is happening. There's no way, I don't know exactly what the timeline's going to be, but it's going to happen. Instead of European leaders calling President Trump every time Turkish President Recep Erdogan does something against their interests, eventually the group will learn how to engage him individually. In a world of bilateral respect, the lessons from Trump could even have the downstream effect of training the EU to drop their obsession with Russia bad everything. The Ukraine conflict could end when Europe finally realizes it's much easier to turn on a Nord Stream gas valve than it is to rebuild 30 German nuclear power plants. President Trump's refusal to commit U.S. troops to Zelensky's security guarantee will hopefully hasten that conversation. The same pragmatic realism applies to Greenland. Europe will never respond to any increase in strategic threat presented by China or Russia in the Arctic, and the U.S. will shoulder all the costs if that risk were to materialize. Strategic pragmatism combined with economic realism is why President Trump is focused on the security of the North American continent. Lastly, there is a segment of MAGA that is angered by President Trump's interim and necessary approach to removing our foreign policy entanglements in both the European and Mideast continents. Those who are short-sighted don't see how President Trump is strategically and factually withdrawing U.S. policy from a world of enmeshed dependencies. Because in reality, charity, along with security, begins at home. Smile, live your very best life, and watch it all unfold. After all, Davos is going to be a must-watch event next week. And then, another one from him, a little bit shorter. President Trump invites Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko to join the Gaza Board of Peace. The UN is now having fits. The absolute madman actually did it. He actually invited Putin to join the Gaza Board of Peace. Sundance says, the media has just discovered that U.S. President Donald Trump has invited Russian Federation Vladimir Putin and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko to join the Gaza Board of Peace. The United Nations Assembly is going bananas. In one of the most beautiful and strategic constructs of international maneuvering in our lifetime, Chairman of the Board and U.S. President Donald Trump has just constructed a geopolitical pathway for the Russian Federation to rejoin the world and establish a respectful global governance assembly based on pragmatic humanitarian and sovereign interests. Simultaneously, President Donald J. Trump, have you heard of him? A fine gentleman he is, has just nulled the globalist United Nations Assembly by framing a new global vision. An actionable international construct based on the same reciprocity, non-interventionist, and sovereign nation worldview. Chairman/President Trump is using the most complex, conflicted, and multidimensional landscape to assemble a synergy of perspective. The visionary map is in his head, and it's a beautiful thing to see materialize. The United Nations Assembly are not happy. Those who constructed the United Nations are not happy. President Trump calls the Gaza Board of Peace, quote, the greatest and most prestigious board ever assembled, for a reason. However, he is not describing the board simply for who assembles around the table, but rather for the actionable intent created by the assembly itself. For this intention, Gaza, the place, represents a tool, an example, a useful geographical means to an end, a proving ground for the impossible. When people think of Trump, they think big, bold, and unique. This perspective carries with it both big support and big opposition. But even those scaled perspectives are not quite grasping the scope of what he is prepared to accomplish. Maduro was a lesson. It's really remarkable to watch. And then, okay, so here I've got a couple of videos of Putin himself talking about, this one here, Putin understands and justifies Trump's desire to own Greenland. So the second one has translation. This one doesn't. It's just him speaking Russian with the subtitles. So I'm going to try to read them along as they go here. Bear with me. About the United States' plans to annex Greenland. But you know, it's only at first glance that this might surprise someone and lead them to mistakenly believe that these are just some extravagant talk from the new American administration. Nothing of the sort. In fact, the United States had such plans as early as the 1860s. Even then, the American administration was considering the possibility of annexing Greenland and Iceland, but the idea did not receive the support of Congress at the time. Incidentally, I would like to remind you that by 1868, American newspapers were ridiculing the purchase of Alaska. It was called Madness, an icebox, and a garden of polar bears by Andrew Johnson, the then president of the United States. Therefore, the proposal on Greenland failed. This acquisition, I mean the acquisition of Alaska, is certainly viewed very differently in the United States itself, as are the actions of President Andrew Johnson. Therefore, there is nothing surprising about what is happening today, especially since this story only began then and continued further in 1910. For example, a trilateral deal was prepared to exchange territories between the US, Germany, and Denmark. As a result, Greenland would have gone to the United States, but the deal fell through at the time. During World War II, the US set up military bases in Greenland to protect it from being taken over by the Nazis. And after the war, the US offered to buy these islands from Denmark, which is pretty recent in terms of world history. In short, the US has serious plans for Greenland. These plans have long-standing historical roots, as I have just shown, and it is clear that the U.S. will continue to systematically promote its geostrategic, military, political, and economic interests in the Arctic. Okay, so there is the first commentary from Putin talking about Greenland, and then here's Putin on how Europe's leaders will behave with Trump. You could basically hear him purring as he says this.
Что-то изменилось, что ли, со времен Байдена? Да ничего не изменилось. Они с удовольствием выполняли любой приказ со стороны.
I must have seen a different version of this later that had the translation on it. Well, let me read this. Has something changed since Biden's time? Nothing has changed.
Да ничего не изменилось.
They were happy to carry out any order from Washington under Biden.
Любой приказ со стороны Вашингтона при Байдене.
They just don't like Trump. They fought him actively, really interfered in political life and the election process in the United States. And then they were confused when Trump suddenly won. And then they mentally liked Biden more, mentally. He smirks. But Trump has different ideas about what is good, what is bad, including in gender policy and some other issues. They kind of don't like it. But I assure you, Trump, with his character, persistence, he will restore order pretty quickly. Look at his face. And all of them, you'll see, it will happen quickly, soon. All of them will stand at the master's feet and gently wag their tails. What a glorious clip. Very soon they will all stand at the feet of the master and will gently wag their tails. Daddy! They are going to bend the knee to Daddy. So a couple other comments here. I'm trying to get through these kind of quick because I've got some long video clips I want to play you guys. So Steve Loftus here does this. He's doing the meme. He says, first, let me be clear that Trump is a moron. But the Greenland issue has been brought on Denmark by their own actions. Denmark has spent decades loosening its control of Greenland. It's now at the point where independence for Greenland is imminent. This would mean Greenland would be a huge resource-rich country on the USA's doorstep, with a population of just 56,000, no military, and outside NATO. China or Russia could take it in a minute, or more likely gain influence via other means. So while Trump's rhetoric is the usual mix of heavy-handed and tone-deaf, there is a genuine issue of Denmark's making. And Interstate Juche, one of our greatest posters, says, Trump is a moron, but coincidentally, it's pure coincidence. There's no way he actually knows this. He just wants to buy Greenland for his ego. He nailed the situation perfectly, completely on accident. At this point, if you got Trump derangement syndrome, whether you see yourself as on Trump's left or Trump's right, if you've got Trump derangement syndrome, you're basically just this soy creature here. Well, Trump's a moron, but he just accidentally did everything exactly right and brilliantly. Another great post on this. Part of the magic of Trump is his canniness, a sixth sense of his for identifying social and political pressure points and poking at them in the way they need to be poked. I don't even think he does it consciously. Like Greenland, he probably looked at it on a map, saw that it was 1, huge, and 2, right by us, and said, why don't we own that? He was told it was owned by Denmark, if he didn't know that already. Naturally, he'd be confused by this. Why does Denmark own it? What do they do with it? Can they actually defend it? What if they get rid of it or lose it to an enemy of the U.S.? He'd be told that we have bases there, we can negotiate better deals. Okay, but what if they renege on those deals? What if things change and they don't want to work with us in the future? Why don't we just own it outright? All very reasonable questions, and the only acceptable answer to the typical politician is, well, that's their land. We've frozen territorial movement since World War II, and yes, we would defend it for them if it came to that. Okay, well, when you put it like that, Trump says, that's moronic. Then when you add in the fact that Greenland has been coyly courting China's designs on Greenland, it becomes straight up unacceptable. Tell them we want it, make a deal. To him, it's a simple sale of land. He's a real estate guy after all. What it should be. We get the land, they get a huge bag of cash. But for the Eurolibs, this is a no-go. We have to entertain the polite fiction of the post-World War II world that this territory is theirs, despite them having no ability to project power to defend it, and it being in another hemisphere entirely. Also, like American libs and transigents with the wall, which would have helped them actually in stymieing the Biden wave that cost the Dems 2024, the Eurolib political class's acute TDS means that they're against helping Trump get anything resembling a win. So, we're at an impasse. But we're actually not. One of Trump's other insights has been the power of the U.S. consumer base, how it can be wielded like a weapon. This is what tariffs are all about. Then you add in the fact that Europe seems to be completely and utterly in denial about their economic and military power. All of this is highlighted through Greenland as the pretext. If Trump wants Greenland and isn't actually jockeying for something else, he's going to get it or whatever it is he wants. And no, there will be no hot war over that place, so calm down. And when he gets what he wants, Europe will be, for the better, just a little more clear-eyed about the shape of things. Yeah, Euro not that waggers are the worst. The not that waggers. No, not that way. Essentially, this whole tweet can be resolved as Trump is daddy and Eurofags are going to get mogged.
Hundreds of tanks.
Speaking of the Eurofags, listen to this.
Germany's got big plans for its armed forces. 460,000 soldiers. Hundreds of tanks. Modern air power. A powerful navy. Germany is gearing up massively.
NATO can rely on Germany.
Military spending is skyrocketing.
In der Tat die 5%, die Präsident Trump gefordert hat. Wir folgen ihm da.
Friedrich Merz is not playing around.
Die Bundesregierung wird zukünftig alle finanziellen Mittel zur Verfügung stellen, die die Bundeswehr braucht, um konventionell zur stärksten Armee Europas zu werden.
They're going to be the strongest conventional army in Europe. It's kind of like the I don't know, it's like the shortest midget or the tallest midget or something like that. Coach Noah Revoy says, Trump goes to Europe and says, you're going to need to build up your militaries because the United States cannot afford to keep large armies stationed in Europe anymore. We're going to need to pull them out. Europe responds, no, we do not want to do that. Then many hawkish politicians back in America also respond, no, we do not want to do that either. So Trump says, in that case, I'm taking Greenland. Suddenly, Europe decides to build up its military. It increases the number of soldiers, expands equipment stockpiles, and ramps up its capacity to produce military goods. Very quickly, European powers are likely to ask for U.S. bases to be closed because they no longer want or need them. Trump can accomplish all of this simply by saying he is going to take Greenland without ever actually doing it, yet. That is the power of words as magic. If you understood that Trump is a wizard, you would understand him much better. Trump is a wizard. That's the takeaway. Trump, wizard. That's all you need to know. Trump, wizard.
The only acceptable political theory is complete undying loyalty to Donald Trump.
What's going to wind up happening here, honestly, is that the United States is going to be maintaining military bases in Europe against European wishes. We're going to get to that point eventually. Like, the United States is going to maintain a military base there as not as a matter of hostility, but as like a containment force. This back and forth here was kind of funny. It's a couple of Germans, and this chick says, "Explain to me why you still support Trump. I just want to understand it. Have I overlooked anything good that the man has accomplished? Please read this first and then submit the but list." And I'm not going to go through all of her reeing on this, but this guy here, Adamir Mustik, says, I can explain that. Trump is a type of politician that we in Germany simply don't know and don't have at all. He implements previously announced plans one-to-one. Under him, the USA sometimes moves faster than an agile company. He's been president for a year now and has achieved 4.3% GDP growth, oil price 20% lower than a year ago, unemployment under 4.5%. American stock markets have gained about 20% in this period. Inflation's at 2.7%. The trade balance deficit is the lowest in 17 years, and the crime rate has dropped significantly. He says, I have great respect for this other chick, but the question alone of what positive things the man has achieved is odd. For Germany, nothing at all. We get outraged, demonize, or sabotage him wherever we can. Trump isn't the federal chancellor of Germany, after all. Why should he do anything positive for us? I'm really surprised by how he's treated here at home. Because he's so different, people here also long for a similarly resolute leader like him. If we don't have someone like that ourselves, why don't we learn to get along with him? We could benefit enormously from it. Getting in his way, in any case, is not a good idea. Would that every single Eurolib would recognize this? Not even the Eurolibs, just the sort of the any substantial portion of the European populations. This is their path to success. Their path to success is we're going to get a micro Trump who is going to draft in the wake of Trump. We're not going to fight him. We're going to work with him. And obviously there's the obvious joke. I see you guys are doing it in the chat. You had a leader like him once upon a time. Yeah, you guys outlawed the possibility of having a leader like Trump. Once again, though, it's the most unexpected sources producing the best analysis of our president. All right, now let's talk about Davos. First, I've got a short clip here from Howard Lutnick, who is preaching the good word to the faggiest of the Eurofags. And then I've got some long commentary from Scott Bessent, which I think is very, very good. And I decided I wanted to play it in its entirety because for those of you who aren't necessarily hanging on Scott Bessent's every word, it's good to hear. If you have listened to him, you're going to recognize a lot of the themes that he hits, but he hits them much more forcefully. But first of all, we've got Howard Lutnick here.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
I don't view the WEF as a flagpole in the middle. You're the flag. You're a bunch of spineless, floppy, stupid people who have impoverished and hollowed out your own countries. Here's the great thing about the American system. is it is fractally scalable. The previous globalizing system was like, we're going to make everybody else all have the same system. We're going to export democracy. We're going to export free trade. And then particular strongholds are going to have a different system. They're going to have a different, they're going to be very protectionist. They're going to develop all their own stuff. They're going to be much more protective. And that's fine. That's fine. They can be. We'll ignore them. Everybody else all needs to have this same system. Doesn't matter what sort of ethnic grievances, what sort of ethnic capacity to even populate a system like that. None of that stuff matters. Everybody gets the same system. The American system has a similar dynamic. Like, you can duplicate our model, but you're going to have to modify it contextually to reflect, well, are you able to be fully autarkic and self-sustainable? Or are you going to naturally be dependent on someone else? Well, if that's the case, then the United States doesn't need to be naturally dependent on anyone else in an absolute sense. So the standards for what the United States can do and the extent to which it can swing its dick around is different than for Germany or for Croatia or Norway. So those European nations are going to have to recognize that they're going to be subservient. Now, within that subservience, you can protect your own industries, promote the interests of your own workers, develop your own middle class, invest in your own infrastructure, build up your own militaries to be able to protect to whatever extent you can project power. But you're going to have to be subservient, ultimately, in the global sense, to the American empire. And we're very happy for this to be a mutually beneficial arrangement. So you can duplicate the American model and you can replicate the American model elsewhere, and it has to be modified accordingly. But then there can be an equilibrium that's established. As long as each nation recognizes their status with respect to their coalition partners and their neighbors and their major, national stakeholders. This is going to be very, very difficult for the Europeans, and I think it's why they're going to have to go through a really long, dark, difficult period. Because Europeans are very proud peoples with very storied histories. But this was an inevitability once we reached the saturation point, covering the land, all the land that's available to us. It was inevitable that Europe was going to start getting left behind. Their only hope was to try to create some sort of great united Europe to be able to extend their ability to project power. But Europe, it's all those deep ancient histories that each European nation carries with it, leads to relentless internecine ethnic feuds and fighting and conflict, and they're never going to form like a united European continent. And it's never going to be functional in the same way that a United States is. You could just say, oh, well, states in a geographic area that all unite together, and states over here in a geographic area that all unite together. But that's where the similarities end. The American system is just different. American geography is different. The American spirit is different. The individual European nations can, within their own domains, within their own borders, duplicate or borrow from or mimic aspects of the American system. And in that way, the American system can spread across the world. But it's not one totalizing, globalizing thing, turning the whole world into one. It's a different sort of, it's a oneness of many versus a one. Now here is Scott Bessent, and I'll speed this up just a little bit. I thought that statement from Lutnick is notable because this is rhetoric. Like, globalization is dead. You guys are a bunch of you guys have completely lost the plot. You're spineless. You're just totally out to lunch. Like, this is strong rhetoric coming from a prominent member of the Trump administration. Take that with the sort of rhetoric that comes out of Scott Bessent. First of all, talking on
the white man is
CNBC.
Back, baby. The white
Hail
man
victory!
Is back. Hitting the 88s for Mrs. Kingpill.
It came through as 72.72. Was there an exchange rate thing there? It did not actually hit the 88s. Well, thank you, Hail Victory. I appreciate that. 72.72 is I don't know if, because like 72.72 is I don't think the exchange rate would have done that directly, but oh, I see. Oh, the streamer bar. Yes, haha. 1488.88. Excellent. Thank you. I thought you were talking about the 88 an $88 tip, because an $88 tip generates a special little surprise. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Let's see here. Let's give you one of these.
I mean, kids, Magellan's a lot cooler than Justin Bieber.
And there's this show, King Pilled. They call it King Pilled. Absolutely incredible show. One of the best I've ever seen.
You're gay.
Thank you, man. Yes, please do contribute to the streamer salary here. I'm going to now kind of let this play. I'll pause and comment on a few things, but I'm gonna lose my voice here before too long, and I want to get through this video and the one after it at the very least. So, Scott Bessent on CNBC at Davos.
I'm joined by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Joe, good to see you, Joe.
Welcome to Davos.
It's great to be here with you.
You've been before. We've all been before. We're okay here. We like it after a while, right? It's okay. We don't turn into total globalists, but we understand it's important to be here.
Yeah, well, it's good fresh air, Joe.
And we have a great view. Before the president departed yesterday,
we're getting the Davos stench on us. Like, yeah, it kind of stinks here. These people suck, right? Yeah. We don't like these people. They're kind of gay, and they've got like diseases and everything. But you know, nice mountain air.
His intention is to talk about the United States and the position of the United States in the global economy based on the last year and a half or whatever it is. And we're going to do that, but Greenland might have gotten in the way a little bit. What do you think about the comments, just the most recent ones about Norway? I can interpret them if you can. I can understand what he meant.
Well, which comments? Because I think what the president wants to talk about, what I want to talk about, is that this is the one-year anniversary of the president taking office. We have the strongest economy in the world. We have the strongest military in the world. And the U.S. is back, and this is what U.S. leadership looks like.
Before the president ever rests on his laurels, and many times he's moving on to the next thing. What I was leading to is I don't think it's a quid pro quo with Norway. I think he's saying, look, I've had 8 peace deals. I've settled them all through peace. This is essential for security for both the world, for the United States, for Greenland, for Denmark, for Europe. And one way or another, we got to get to where we're going. And I think that was what his point was. Do you agree with that?
100%. I think it's a complete canard, and if there's any kind of equivalence with the Nobel Prize. This has been on the president's mind since his first term. It's been on the presidential mind for 150, 160 years. The U.S. has been trying to acquire Greenland. This is not something new, Joe.
And things like
one of the reasons I love listening to Scott Bessent is because he'll speak of concepts like the presidential mind. This is a subject that has been on the mind of many presidents. The great presidential mind that all the presidents participate in has contemplated the acquisition of Greenland for a long time. And obviously what he's referring to is Trump said something about how, so there was all the nations that sent troops to Greenland as a show of force or a bluster against Trump. And he read it exactly for what it was. And he was like, all right, each one of your nations, you each get slapped with tariffs now. It goes up to, I think it was 10% through June, and then if the situation isn't resolved, it goes to 25%.
If you survive, you earn your freedom.
Thank you, Flicker8, for the gifted sub. Congratulations to Mr. Miranchuk, Mr. Jason Miranchuk. A bit of advice for you.
Stay off the weed.
You want to kill the Jews? Every single time.
What was I saying? So in the statement, Trump said something like, he's like, I'm the peace president, and Norway didn't feel like giving me the Nobel Peace Prize, even though I've negotiated all these other things peacefully. I'm trying to negotiate this peacefully with you guys. You want to do some sort of like faux little military escalation against me. Well, I'm not going to play the military escalation game with you, because I am the president of peace, even though you didn't give me the Nobel Prize. So you get some tariffs.
this happen all the time. It's happening right now with Diego Garcia in Mauritius and the UK. Territories change, and Denmark is not really in a position to defend Greenland. We fund NATO, most of NATO, so we're already defending it.
So, Joe, since 1980, the U.S.
It's fascinating to hear CNBC like trying to make the case for the acquisition of Greenland to the Trump's Treasury Secretary. He's like arguing the case for him.
Spent $22 trillion more on defense than the rest of NATO has. $22 trillion. That is approximately 2/3 of our outstanding government debt. So while the Europeans were building schools, having health care, we have been defending the world, and I think the president believes they should be paying their fair share, and he is trying to get in front of this. He's trying to get in front of it because Greenland is strategically important. It's strategically important for his Golden Dome project to protect the U.S., and he's invited Canada into that if they want to pay their share, and it is important that the U.S. has control of Greenland, and that will stop any kind of a kinetic war. So why not preempt the problem before it starts?
There's a little kind of give it away a bit of the story here, which you could kind of reason this on your own probably, but Greenland is significant for the Golden Dome, and the Golden Dome coverage is going to be offered to Canada as well if they want to compensate us for it appropriately. And here's the thing. If Canada does not want to be part of the Golden Dome, then they become a threat. Now it's like, wait a second, why don't you want to be part of a mutual defense pact for our hemisphere here? We're going to provide you a service, and you can buy it, but you're going to benefit from it heavily. You don't want to be a part of that. Well, that's very odd. Is that because you are, we need to treat you as a hostile nation in our hemisphere? I think you're going to get that Golden Dome whether you want it or not.
And likely, in your view, it would end in some type of diplomatic event, not something more serious. I think that's the worst case scenario. The president always talks on the front end, shock and awe, I think, and doesn't take anything off the table, working on the negotiations on the back end, or as a prelude to that.
Well, look, I think the president should take everyone should take the president at his word. And I think the other thing, too, is just like with Liberation Day last year, not you, Joe, but the media has gone into hysterics. The Europeans are going to sell their U.S. assets. The U.S. is not a reliable partner. U.S. is a reliable partner. I can tell you, I hosted at Treasury last Monday a critical minerals summit to try to get the rest of the world to move with the speed that the U.S. is to avoid this chokehold that China has on critical minerals. So we had our G7 partners, Mexico, India, South Korea, and Australia there, and this is what U.S. leadership looks like, Joe.
There will be talk over here, no doubt, and I'm looking forward to the president's speech tomorrow about how this happens. And there's 10% tariffs on February 1st. There's possible retaliation with a coercion principle that you would, at this point, urge the Europeans not to go that route, or at least for things to just cool off a little bit and try to do this through dialogue.
Well, having worked with the Europeans, my guess is their next move will be to form a working group. The dreaded European working group.
We've seen a lot of working groups over the decades.
We've seen a lot of working groups.
It's hard to make decisions in Europe. It is. And sometimes...
Well, Joe, 4 years into the Ukraine war, they're still buying Ukraine energy. They are buying refined products from India made from Russian oil. So 4 years in, the Europeans are still financing the war against themselves.
All right. Let's talk about it.
The Europeans are financing a war against themselves. The dreaded European working group. And there's that's exactly what I'm talking about. He says it there himself. It's difficult to get something done in Europe because you got all these different divergent interests, and they all have these dick measuring contests with each other, and they've all got ancient feuds that are all constantly being flared up again. So, who's going to run point here? Is it going to be France? Is it going to be Germany? Is it going to be Italy? Is it going to be Brussels? Is it going to be Poland? Well, they're Hungary. The UK. Well, not really part of the EU. You're just going to go round and round in circles like this forever. The only way to deal with Europe is to corner them individually and force them to face reality.
But Joe, what I do want to say is, same thing that I said after Liberation Day on April 2nd, everyone take a deep breath, do not escalate, and President Trump has a strategy here, hear him out, and then everything will be fine.
When I hear people say the U.S. is in dire straits, there's chaos, et cetera, I just list about 5 or 6 things, okay? Stock market new highs almost every week. I don't know about today because there's a lot of tumult around what we were just talking about. GDP, multi-year highs. Unemployment, basically, we're at full employment. Inflation.
Matt, te token vitar los tacos al pastor después del live.
Thank you, Jose Anu. Let me hold on a second. Te toca invitar los tacos al pastor después del live. So, is that te toca? My verb tenses are betraying me here, but it's like you're invited. You have an invitation. You're invited to have tacos al pastor after the live. Did I get my words right there? I think that's right. Someone that speaks Spanish better than me, correct me if I'm wrong.
2.7%, depending on what you talk about, or down from as high as 9%. Southern border is secure.
Stephen Miller's coming for me. Oh no! I'm sorry, Stephen. I was just reading what was in front of me. I repent. Give me probation.
Trade deals all around the world, trillions of dollars of investment flowing here. I was asking, where's the rub? Why so sad?
Again, I think the President's had an incredible year. He's done peace deals, trade deals, and tax deals. We have the one big, beautiful bill done on July 4th. On the corporate side, full expensing for equipment, for factories, for farm structures, for working Americans, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of American-made cars. We're going to see record tax refunds. I'm also the IRS commissioner. I can tell you we're going to see record tax refunds coming out in the fourth quarter for working Americans. We've had a CapEx boom, up 12%. History will tell you CapEx boom always follows an employment boom. So, I'm not sure.
He meant a CapEx boom always precedes an employment boom. But it's funny to me, I was listening to this morning while I was going for a walk. And it was funny listening to Joe just kind of like stumbling over himself, like stammering, like everything's great. Like you're doing incredible. Like you guys are so impressive. And the Europeans really just kind of need to chill out, right? Like look at all these amazing things you're doing. And Trump totally knows what he's doing. And he's got a great record. And, why don't people just kind of get it? I mean, Bessent goes on their show regularly and they've got a good dialogue with him. But I think it's more evidence of institutions beginning to just move themselves in alignment with the administration.
We are the envy of the world. We have higher nominal growth than China.
Let's talk about the nominal growth are numbers that, when you say them, it's hard to even grasp it. So 8% is possible at this point. Well, that's what it was in the last quarter. I think
it was 7 or 8%. And we are moving along at a great pace. And again, the president's economic agenda was a three-legged stool: trade, tax, and deregulation. You know what's really kicking in now, Joe, is the dereg.
That takes the longest.
That takes the longest, but we're seeing it. We're seeing it. Treasury and the financial regulators, safe and sound deregulation in the banking system, getting more lending into the regulator.
Okay, so trade, tax, deregulation. You can just keep that in mind. The three parts from Scott Bessent, the three parts of Trump's economic policy is trade, tax, so trade, tariffs basically, and foreign direct investment brought in through trade negotiations, taxes. My president is three-legged. That's right, he is. He's a fox in the sheets. So trade, taxes, so the tax reform, getting the tax code realigned, and tax credits for to incentivize production. And then deregulation. And the deregulation is the thing that's going to take the longest, because you've got to go through, you've got to actually remove the regulations, and then you've got to get people's behavior to modify to move into the space that was previously blocked out by the presence of the regulations. So it's going to take a little bit for that to, like, once you start deregulating, there's a delay, there's a lag period before it starts to spin up. But one of the biggest areas where they have been deregulating is in the credit markets, and particularly targeting it at loosening bank regulations so that they're able to lend more, but specifically to lend to the small and medium business markets. And he's mentioned many times, he mentions it here, that one of their goals is to bring back the community banks, which is going to be lending that's not going to, it's not like lending to OpenAI or something. It's lending to, your local businessman, your local tradesman, your person who wants to do a remodel on their house and needs to have local tradesmen who come and do that, or some building project for the Chamber of Commerce, or all the sorts of local things that translate directly into jobs and income there within the local economies. That's the sort of productive lending that actually forms the backbone of the American middle class.
Banking system. Oliver Wyman believes that we've created $2.5 trillion of lending capacity that can go. I have made a big push on Main Street with small banks, community banks, because they power Main Street. And I think Wall Street can do well, Main Street can do well, and I think we're about to see it in spades for 2026.
When you said that in this term for the president that you could get, debt to deficit, or
deficit to GDP.
Deficit to GDP down to 3%. We were at 7%, were we not?
We were for calendar year 2024. We were at 6.9. Calendar year 2025, 5.4. 5.4. So that's a combination of controlling spending and the higher revenues, substantial portion of that from tariff income.
And 3% is still possible by the end of.
Well, at this pace, we may be there before the end of that.
Let's switch to the Fed because we've had a lot of comments recently. You don't know when the announcement's going to be made, or what? There's things happening today, I guess, at the Supreme Court regarding the Fed. Jay Powell's planning to visit to watch the proceedings with Lisa Cook.
Well, couple of things, Joe.
Now, this is interesting because generally, where the Fed is concerned, Bessent typically is he'll criticize the Fed, but he's usually very careful not to criticize Jay Powell directly. He'll talk more in general terms about the Fed, like getting outside their mandate and, like following a bunch of bad policies and that sort of thing. But here, he's much more pointed with his criticism.
To visit to watch the proceedings with Lisa Cook.
Well, couple of things, Joe. My guess is that the president will reach a decision maybe as soon as next week. We've had substantial conversations about this. We've run a process that started in September. 11 very strong candidates. We're now down to 4 candidates. The president has personally met with all of them, and it's going to be his decision. In terms of the Supreme Court hearing, I believe, I'm not sure whether it's today or tomorrow, Jay Powell has announced he's going to attend, and Joe, I gotta say, I actually think that's a mistake.
Baby. The white man is back.
Plaza, shove your maggot chud penis up. Hey, is not that Wager's digital ass.
$20 from Mir and Chuck, $20 from Down Under. Justine kind of butchered that. Please shove your maggot chud penis up AA's not that Wager's digital ass. Well, I am the king of the maggot chuds, so I suppose if anybody is going to be shoving a penis up AA's digital ass, it's going to have to be the king of the maggot chuds. So I am willing. I'm willing to take on this responsibility as your guys' designated representative, the king of the maggot chuds. But I'm going to have to. But thank you, Mr. Miranchuk, for contributing to the tip jar, because that is going to have to fund this great burden that I'm going to take on for you guys.
The Supreme Court hearing, I believe, I'm not sure whether it's today or tomorrow, Jay Powell has announced he's going to attend, and Joe, I got to say, I actually think that's a mistake, because if you're trying not to politicize the Fed, for the Fed chair to be sitting there trying to put his thumb on the scale is a real mistake.
And there's a lot to...
It's interesting. That's a pretty pointed criticism. I think that may be the first time that I've ever heard Bessent actually go out of his way to directly, pointedly, personally criticize Jerome Powell.
Talk about, obviously, with Jay Powell, there's this great economy that you were just talking about. So obviously the Fed has managed rates to the extent that it allowed us to get to where we are right now, notwithstanding what we saw a couple of years ago when maybe the Fed was too slow in the face of that inflation, the post-pandemic inflation. But there are other things that you've pointed to. Jay Powell is not just the chairman that sets interest rates. He runs this huge behemoth of an organization, unelected, that is a huge part of Americans, of their lives in this country. And you're CEO and COO of that organization, and that's where you have some issues.
Look, I think that the Fed's monetary policy independence is very important. I think that a lot of the issues around the independence are being created by the other things that are happening. So let's look. Under Chair Powell's watch, we will have seen between 4 to 6 governors and presidents have to resign for ethical issues. That's out of 19, Joe. If that happened at a Wall Street firm, CEO would be out.
And we found out in hindsight most of the time. I'm not sure why. It's not transparent.
And it's not transparent. And again, the independence does not mean lack of accountability. The Fed has a special obligation to.
Independence does not mean lack of accountability. We're talking about the Trump administration, especially under Bessent, is really going to remake the relationship of the federal government to the Fed, and we're seeing that being worked out in real time. But like, there's a good slogan for you. Independence does not mean lack of accountability, and in fact, we need to bring accountability in order to assure the Fed's independence.
The American people, because it influences their lives, but they are unelected. They are not subject to appropriations. They have magic money. They print their own money. This big cost overrun for the Fed building, they'll just print more. They'll just print more money. So I don't think there's anything wrong with some accountability. And look, just to be clear, the Federal Reserve is now losing $100 billion a year. $100 billion a year because of mistimed asset purchases. I think that was a big mistake.
How does this resolve itself? I know that this isn't your purview necessarily, but do you see perhaps there are a couple of things that we wanted Chair Powell to make clear? If that were done, would the subpoena go away at that point? There's a delegation of senators coming. They're not going to Senator Tillis. I don't think he's going to be not running for re-election, obviously, but he's saying they won't even bring up a nominee until this is settled.
Well, a couple of things, Joe. I think that any of the 4 nominees are very, very strong candidates. 2, I don't know about you, if I got a subpoena, or if it wasn't initially a subpoena, it was questions from U.S. Attorney's Office, I would answer it. So perhaps these questions could be answered and we can move along. I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation.
I think.
So the U.S. attorneys sent questions to the Fed. They went ignored. So then they turned into a subpoena. But he's like, yeah, you might want to address that issue, but they're keeping this distance. Like, the DOJ is doing the DOJ's job. It's not the Treasury directing the DOJ to go, or it's not Trump directing the DOJ to go investigate them. They're like, no, this is just the DOJ is running through their course of operations, and it's up to the members of the Fed to properly respond and avail themselves of the DOJ agents if and when they need to.
I saw another interview you did that we need, in your view, a Fed chairman similar to Greenspan that cannot get too agitated about a hot GDP number and think it immediately translates to resurgent inflation because of productivity.
Well, it's clear that we are at the nascent stages of a productivity boom, not unlike the 1990s. I tell all your viewers, go back and read Bob Woodward's book, Maestro, about Alan Greenspan and how he correctly let the economy run hot, that we had very substantial GDP growth. We were able to pay down a lot of debt. I don't know if you remember, Joe, but in the end of the 90s, there was talk, well, what are we going to do if there's no government debt? Or what are we going to do if there's not a deficit? And that would be a nice position to be in. But I do think it's important to have an open mind, let the economy do what it's going to do, understand that we are in a productivity boom, and let's see what happens. Because my prediction is that inflation is going to drop substantially this year. Observable inflation is very different than reported inflation. We're seeing rents drop. We're going to see healthcare.
Observable inflation versus reported inflation. So basically, there's actual inflation, which would be like the reported inflation, and then there's observable inflation, which would be like people's perception of the inflation. So he's like, measurably, the inflation is, the tariffs are supposed to cause all this inflation, but the inflation isn't coming. This is because there's lots of deflationary things that the administration has done and is doing as well. So the idea that, we need to keep rates higher because we need to make sure we're wringing this extra liquidity out of the market to ensure that inflation doesn't take off. Well, there is no inflation that's taking off, and the longer we go, the clearer it becomes that there is no inflation to take off. So the administration wants rates brought down even further and actually lowering rates into a productivity boom. has the potential of, like, the concern would be if you lower rates in the productivity boom, you get inflation. Well, what kind of inflation? Wage inflation? Well, that'd be a very good thing. We definitely want inflation in some places. Certain assets, we want certain assets to inflate. We need some kinds of inflation. Those are good. It's good to have those sorts of inflation. If the Fed always raises rates into a boom like that, they're actually preventing the boom from booming too much. So they're in a sense, they're actually now serving as a drag on the productive capacity of the economy.
Drop. So yeah, I think a very good chance the Fed's going to be back on target.
Do you have any issues, and we'll wind down, but do you have any issues as a private sector, free markets guy, 10% on cap on credit cards, or lessen the dividends and stock buybacks for defense contractors, or most favored nation for prescription drugs? Are all these things one-offs that the president thinks are just necessary in the current environment? Because it does go back on years of sort of classic conservatism, some of these moves.
Well, the sort of unfettered free markets have taken us to these gigantic trade deficits. They have allowed China
to... all these things are not classic.
Well, free trade was not fair trade, and free trade doesn't work if you have a gigantic state actor who does not have the same system that you do. Same thing. If we look at most favored nation for drug pricing, what the president realized, and this was his vision and no one else's. For years, the U.S. high drug prices had subsidized innovation. And it was, this is the price we pay. We are subsidizing the rest of the world. And the president looked at these European, the national health systems, and said, why are they paying less? So the idea here is equalization over time. The U.S. consumer will pay, and our health services will pay less, and the Europeans have to pay more. They've been free riding. In terms of the defense primes, look, these are no different than systemically important banks. They exist at the pleasure of the United States of America. They exist to serve our national defense, and they have failed. They have failed. They are many of them 5 to 7 years behind on their deliveries. In the meantime, they're buying back substantial portions of stock rather than building new facilities. So I think it is a good idea to bring them to heel.
How about that?
These are strong statements. The defense primes, he's saying the defense primes are nigh unto actual wings of the federal government. They're basically there. They're like the what is it, the GSIBs, the globally systemically important banks that are quasi-nationalized. And he's saying the defense primes are right on that threshold of being quasi-nationalized, and they may need to be fully nationalized if they're going to keep dropping the ball the way that they are. This is having a Treasury Secretary say the defense primes have failed the country and they need to get their act together. And yes, the president is absolutely within his purview to come loom over them and threaten to crack down on them. And we can't let this like free market, the government can never intervene in the market fiction persist, because it just doesn't. When you try to operate a country, especially a country as massive as the United States, when you try to operate it according to so-called free trade or free market principles, then you get embedded corruption and moral hazard. That like the free trade actually creates the moral hazard that all the free traders claim the government creates.
The credit cards. When the president and Elizabeth Warren have...
There's a very interesting thing here he says about Elizabeth Warren. So right on the tail of saying that the number one, there's a difference between free trade and fair trade, and basically the United States has a responsibility to protect its own interests vis-a-vis other large nation-state level actors who don't have any incentive or reason to buy into and play according to the same rules. And that the defense primes have failed their country and need to get their shit together. Right on the tail of that, then he has some interesting things to say about Elizabeth Warren.
Good idea to bring them to heel.
How about the credit cards? When the president and Elizabeth Warren have a meeting of the minds over the phone, a lot of people on the right shudder.
I think that there are a lot of things that we can look at with the credit cards in terms of their practices, in terms of their behaviors, and we'll see where that goes. And it's In terms of Elizabeth Warren, even occasionally, she could have one or two good
I know
ideas.
a lot of expressions that could, yeah.
No, but I would say that in terms of direction, that the president, the administration, agree with many of Senator Warren's policies that the poorest members of society shouldn't pay the most, but she wants to control credit. She wants to put in more regulation. That under the banking practices that she championed after the great financial crisis, whether it was Dodd-Frank, we have lost 50% of our small and community banks that power Main Street. So everything she has done has been the opposite. But again, I think it is not unreasonable to have a discussion on the practices of these credit card companies.
It's a new world we're in, and enjoy yourself while you're here. I warned you about the Stockholm Syndrome. I've been here many years. It hasn't happened to me at this point. I start feeling it a little bit being here with all the globalists, but I always bounce back once we get back to the great United States.
Well, Joe, we're here to spread the message of American prosperity. Come and join us. America first does not mean America alone, and I think I will not have Davos syndrome.
Mr. Secretary, thank you.
Good to see you.
I will not have Davos syndrome. It's a really great framing too. America first does not mean America alone. I was thinking about this. America first, like the idea of America first as a phrase sort of implies action. America first to what? America, it's like America in front, America going somewhere. So America is going somewhere, and we invite all of you to come along with us. There was one other thing I was going to say there. He's talking about Elizabeth Warren and the one other thing was that a thought that has kind of come to my mind listening to him and a few other things is that this narrative is developing that the United States has covered the defense costs for everyone and especially for Europe. The United States is footing the defense bill, which is what has allowed Europe to develop all these big, substantial, expansive social programs. Well, now the United States is like, you need to foot the bill for your own defense a lot more. We're going to be generating a bunch more income coming in here into the country. And what are we going to use that income for? Well, in part, we're going to use it to start establishing some of those sorts of social programs. But we're going to roll those social programs in, not in a European-style system, but we're going to roll them in an American-style system. With the American economic system, there actually is room to have government-subsidized social programs that are conducted in a productive way. I'm not saying that I think everything's going to be, sunshine and lollipops and rainbows and we're all going to live happily ever after, but I think if you aren't super married to your libertarian orthodoxies, then there are some pretty interesting social programs that a judicious, proactive federal government operating according to the principles of this American system of political economy can actually engage in to promote the welfare of its own people, particularly in a sort of transitionary stage. I'm going to call it there for tonight. Tomorrow, on tomorrow's show, we'll listen to this speech that Bessent gave. He held this news conference and did a little Q&A. And he repeated some of the points that he made in the interview I just played. But he added a few more things to it. And then we'll also talk about some quotes here from Macron in his speech. And then there's a 15-minute speech here from Mark Carney, where he's talking about the death of the rules-based international order. So we'll get into all of those things on tomorrow's show, along with a bunch of other stuff. But for now, my voice is starting to give out on me. I gotta pee. I'm tired. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. I'm gonna go to bed. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me here tonight, showing up for the ASTROLABE. Thank you for watching, whether you're on Kick or Rumble or X, or if you're listening to this later on YouTube or on the podcatchers. You guys know how the platforms work. Please do the things. Please leave a 5-star rating and review on the podcasts. Please like the stream. Please share the show. Follow me on Twitter @KingPill. Join the KingPill Discord, kingpill.com. Download the EWBSX app and listen, or go to EWBSX.com and listen, and stay tuned for some things that are going to be dropping there very, very soon. Please do support the show. You can hit the tips link any time of day. If you're listening to this, even if I'm not live, then just go to tips.kingpill.com, send over a tip, contribute to the tip jar, help me pay my bills for the family, and I'll play the tip during the stream. You can also just go straight to Cash App or Venmo at Kingpilled on both of them, and just let me know, and I'll add it to the tip jar. And yeah, Viva Cristo Ray says you're all counted among the best humans on the planet. So true. So true. There is nobody like a Labian. You guys are the best. And I'll give you just a little bit of a tease here. Keep your calendars open for the 4th of July. Just stay tuned. You may get an announcement on something here before too long, but the 250th anniversary weekend, keep your calendars open for the possibility of something happening. There are rumblings, rumors of possible things in the works. So stay tuned for that. And I appreciate all of you. Love every single one of you. I'll catch you somewhere else on the internet, or I'll see you tomorrow here on the Astrolabe. For now, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough.